Chapter 540. Ying and his wife finished looking through the entire mansion. They did not discover anything else, so they left the mansion. Standing at the entrance of the residence, at the bottom of the canyon, Ying's body suddenly emitted a large amount of light. This was his luminous sun force. A large amount of luminous sun force spread out, rapidly enveloping the entire meteorite that had a diameter of 10,000 miles. How is it? Jing asked. There are many cracks on the surface of the meteorite, but most of them are inconspicuous. There are a total of 8 spots which are more conspicuous. Ying laughed. Let's go. Let's see if we can peel off the calamity stone essence from these 8 spots. They took a step forward. The speed of the husband and wife was extremely fast. In just a few steps they arrived at a spot on the surface of the meteorite. There, the surface of the meteorite seemed to have been completely cracked, leaving only traces of it behind. This is the spot with the largest crack. It has almost completely fallen off. Ying laughed. It has been a long time since a cultivator has come to this meteorite. That's why we discovered it. Let me try first, Jing said. She stretched out her hand and pointed. Rays of sword light shot out one after another. They were precisely Jing Qiu's blood-refined deity weapon. These thin swords brought with them a terrifying might as they struck the crucial spots on the surface of the meteorite. At the level of Ying and Jing Qiu, their control over their strength had reached an extremely high level. A miraculous object like the Calamity Stone essence was surrounded by water. If one were to use pure brute force, one would only be able to unleash 1/10 of one's full strength. Only by matching one's realm with one's strength would one be able to unleash such a miraculous effect. Dang dang dang, the sounds of collisions rang out. This piece of meteorite had clearly fallen off, with only a few traces remaining. Yet it was still trembling without stopping. Ying and the others weren't trying to destroy the Calamity Stone essence. They were merely trying to take advantage of the cracks. Despite being a stage 4 world deity, Jing Qiu's blood-refined deity weapon was still unable to break it apart. I don't believe it. Let me try again. Jing Qiu willed the 9 swords to form a sword array in the air. Haha, take it slow. Ying smiled as he watched from the side. His wife was quite competitive. Boom! The 9 thin swords suddenly burst out and turned into a dazzling sword light. The sword light flashed, leaving behind an arc trajectory, and suddenly hit the stone. The stone shook again and finally, the threads connecting it to the bottom completely fell off. Success! Ying praised. Jing Qiu extended her hand, and the Calamity Stone essence fell into her palm. She felt it for a moment, then threw it to Ying. You keep it? I'll keep it? Ying was surprised. This is my biggest spoil of war. I'll give it to you as a gift. Jing Qiu smiled. Ying took the Calamity Stone essence and felt it for a moment. He nodded. It's about 6 kilograms. This is indeed your biggest spoil of war. Just this stone alone was worth 7 to 800 million deity crystals. It was comparable to the wealth of a relatively young stage 4 world deity. Of course, some of the more powerful stage 3 world deities who had cultivated for a long time would be able to save up this much. Even a greedy person like the venomous Ying world deity would not be so greedy. Let's go. Let's go to the next one. Jing Qiu was relatively happy. The feeling of obtaining a treasure without restraint was truly refreshing. The two of them worked together, yet they were only able to peel off 2 stones. The second one had to be done by the combined efforts of Ying and his wife. The remaining 6 places had obvious cracks, but they were unable to do so no matter what they did. Even so, these 2 stones weighed more than 10 kilograms. The ruins of Lake Heart Island are indeed different. We haven't even landed on the island, yet we've already obtained such a precious treasure, Jing Qiu said. We're also lucky that a senior left behind a residence on this meteorite to inform us of this. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to discover this secret, Ying said. As for this secret, very few people knew about it. After all, there were very few who dared to enter the ruins of Lake Heart Island. Coincidentally, it was even more difficult to land on the meteorite. After all, the silvery white ball of water on the island had a diameter of more than 8 trillion kilometers. Even 100 million meteorites would be inconspicuous within it. Regarding this, Dongbu Shuiying had never thought of publicizing it. He was not that foolish. Everything in the world had its own rules. If one wanted to obtain something, they had to pay the corresponding price. Who? The two walked on the surface of the meteorite, crossing many large canyons. In the depths, Dongbu Shuiying's luminous sun force spread out, allowing him to discover the pavilion left behind by Emperor Heavencloud and his corpse. In the depths of one of the canyons there was a huge circular gap in the array diagram. "Let's go in." Dongbu Shuiying and his wife immediately turned into a stream of light and entered the gap. They followed the huge gap of the array diagram and dived for more than 3,000 kilometers before entering a huge hole. This huge hole was at least 1,000 kilometers wide. In the center of the hole there was a pavilion. In the pavilion there was a figure sitting cross-legged. He was looking up at a light ball floating in front of him. The light ball was composed of silver and red. It was incomparably gorgeous and formed an incomparably mysterious light ball array diagram. This light ball array diagram had more than 100 million nodes, and countless nodes were constantly rotating. Emperor Heavencloud, Dongbu Shuiying and Jingqiu walked over. The person sitting cross-legged was Emperor Heavencloud. It was just his corpse. Emperor Heavencloud was a very majestic and tall man. Even after his death, his majestic body exuded an endless domineering aura. His will had already merged with his body. Even though he had died for more than 200 billion years, this terrifying will still did not dissipate. This kind of will made Dongbu Shuiying and the others secretly change their expressions. When Dongbu Shuiying approached and saw Emperor Heavencloud's face, he couldn't help but be stunned. How could he? Even when he died, he did not close his eyes and did not lower his head? Dongbu Shuiying couldn't believe the scene in front of him. Emperor Heavencloud, who was sitting cross-legged, raised his head and looked at the array diagram in front of him. His eyebrows were very thick, and his eyes were full of spirit and a terrifying desire. One must know that when he died, his true deity heart had already collapsed. Even when his true deity heart collapsed, he still stared at the array diagram and was still fighting for the last glimmer of hope. Even when he died, he did not give up. Dongbu Shuiying silently looked at him. Peerless genius. Even when his true deity heart collapsed, he still stared at the array diagram with his head held high. He did not even close his eyes. The strong desire in his eyes could be clearly felt. Such willpower. Such a Tao heart. Dongbu Shuiying silently said. After dying for 200 billion years, his willpower still existed in this space. This was the first person that Dongbu Shuiying had seen in his life. He had seen many stage for world gods, but none of them could shock him like this. He had seen big senior brother Huiming, Qihua Laozu, and many other great existences. But he had to admit that the willpower of those great existences was not as strong as this. Only the Abyss Master, His Majesty God Emperor, and the three ancestors at the Myriad Flower Feast were people that he could not see through. But normal great existences, Dongbu Shuiying felt that their willpower and Tao heart were definitely not as good as this person in front of him. After all, he was the one who beat up the Lord of Destruction until he was afraid of him. He even went to beg God Emperor for treasures and plotted against Emperor Heavencloud. Willpower, Dongbu Shuiying silently said. He also sat cross-legged on the side and closed his eyes. Snow Eagle. Jingqiu was also shocked by the terrifying willpower released by Emperor Heavencloud's corpse, but she suddenly found her husband sitting cross-legged and closed his eyes in cultivation. She could not help but be puzzled, but she did not dare to disturb him. Dongbu Shuiying sat with his eyes closed. He finally understood. Ever since he became a disciple of his master, God Emperor, he had been dazzling, but this time, he took the initiative to bring his wife to the Lake Heart Island ruins. It was because he felt that living a comfortable life was eroding his willpower. Previously he only had this feeling. But now that he saw Emperor Heavencloud's corpse, he died with his head held high and his eyes wide open. Dongbu Shuiying was touched. He understood the gap between him and Emperor Heavencloud. Tao heart. That resolute willpower. Ever since I was young, for my brother, for my parents, for Xia people, for my wife, I have moved forward without looking back, even becoming a grade 1 true meaning transcendent. But what happened after that? After becoming a disciple of my master, although my cultivation speed was fast, It was also because of the extremity path, chaotic whole path, and world path. These were the 3 paths I liked when I was a transcendent. Naturally, it was done in one go, but in reality, my desire to pursue the Tao is not that strong anymore. Now, I lack the sharpness of a blade. I lack such a strong Tao heart. Compared to Emperor Heavencloud, I am still far behind. Chapter 541. Jing Qiu watched from the side. Dongbu Shuiying sat cross-legged for half an hour, and then he slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was much sharper than before. Snow Eagle, what's wrong? Jing Qiu asked. Dongbu Shuiying got up and looked at Imperial Emperor Heavenly Cloud's corpse, who was staring at the array diagram even after his death, and said, "The heart is like a mirror. Cultivating the heart is to make this mirror more clear, and you need to clean it often to remind yourself. Otherwise, if it falls on the ground, it will gradually become dark." Imperial Emperor Heavenly Cloud's Tao heart is so strong, and it made me understand that my Tao heart is not strong enough. Understanding is one thing, but cultivating the heart must rely on one step at a time to prove my Tao heart. Dongbu Shuiying said. Jing Qiu felt the sharpness in Dongbu Shuiying's eyes, and she couldn't help but be shocked. Her Tao heart was also very firm, but it was not like Dongbu Shuiying and Imperial Emperor Heavenly Cloud's sharpness and domineeringness. My will is not as strong as him now, but it is not necessarily the case in the future. After all, he has experienced the tempering of 10 billion years. Dongbu Shuiying smiled, and then walked forward to the pavilion, and carefully looked at the light ball floating in the air. The light ball was formed by 2 colors, white and red, and the countless light rays of the 2 colors formed a spherical array diagram, and the countless intersecting nodes were changing. Dongbu Shuiying carefully looked around and said, "Jing Qiu, this array diagram appeared. It should be activated by Imperial Emperor Heavenly Cloud's array." "Yes," Jing Qiu said. "I also looked at it for a while and it is unfathomable." And Dongbu Shuiying also carefully looked at the array diagram. Buzz. As soon as his consciousness seeped into it, he felt himself rapidly shrinking, becoming a tiny dot within the huge formation. He looked around and saw stars spinning in the distance. Over 100 million stars were constantly changing. Although each star seemed to be moving very slowly, there was a special sense of beauty to it. Hundreds of millions of stars moved in different directions, creating a sense of vastness. He felt as though he was facing the entire material world, as though there were countless mortal worlds revolving within the material world. In fact, this array felt even more domineering than the physical world. It was a domineering frontal suppression. It was as if no one could shake this formation. The vast laws of the material realm felt that if it was an ordinary person, then this formation would be like a soldier wearing armor and wielding a weapon. Dongbu Shuiying looked at the revolving stars and suddenly his heart thumped. He could vaguely sense a terrifying destructive intent. Even the destructive aura he sensed from his master's blood blade couldn't compare to this formation. The hundreds of millions of slowly moving stars contained an incomparably terrifying killing intent, and it was brewing. Once it erupted, the heavens and earth would shatter. One of Dongbu Shuiying's 3 great secret skills was none other than the secret skill destruction. At this moment he could not help but be immersed in it. As he was immersed in it, he lost track of time. Days passed one after another. Jing Qiu was also immersed in the diagram, occasionally waking up. As a stage 4 world deity, she was able to see much more of the array, and she was also shocked. No wonder Emperor Heavencloud chose to comprehend this diagram before his death, and it was his final struggle. The more I look at this formation, the more I feel that it is inconceivable. More than a month had passed since the 2 of them started looking at it. Snow Eagle, Snow Eagle. A voice that seemed to be very far away could be heard. Peng. Dongbu Shuiying suddenly woke up, and only then did he feel an intense pain in his body. Jing Qiu, who was beside him, retracted her palm and asked anxiously, "What's wrong?" "Ah." Dongbu Shuiying clutched his head. He felt a splitting headache, and there was even blood flowing out of his nose. Not only was his avatar in pain, even his main body in the Xia people's world, Crimson Rock Mountain, had a nosebleed. But at the same time, the artifact spirit of Crimson Rock Mountain had awakened Dongbu Shuiying. I discovered the great destruction aspect of this formation, and I have been trying to comprehend it. The more I comprehend, the more I feel. Unknowingly, my true deity heart was injured by the terrifying killing intent of the formation, and the injury is reflected on my body. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. It's not just this avatar. Even my main body in the Xia people's world was injured. This killing intent is too terrifying, and I was injured by it just by comprehending it. Jing Qiu was also shocked. Injuring the deity heart and body? Even the main body in the material world was injured? Powerful existences can kill enemies far away with a thought, and they rely on karma. But this formation didn't intentionally cause any karmic attacks, and yet it was still able to injure your main body. It's not karma. It's just that both my avatar and main body were trying to comprehend the formation, and they were both injured. The formation is too powerful, and I feel that it's not any weaker than the laws of the material world. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. I can't comprehend it anymore. My comprehension of the formation's destruction aspect has reached my limit. If I continue to comprehend it, it will only take my life. I'm fine. Jing Qiu said. Maybe I'm not comprehending the destruction aspect. I'm going to leave a world's deity avatar here to comprehend it. Alright, I don't need to comprehend it anymore. Let's get ready to go to the Lake Island, Dongbo Shuang said. Then Dongbo Shuang looked at the corpse of Imperial Emperor Heavenly Cloud, who was sitting cross-legged next to him. With a wave of his hand, countless soil and stones appeared next to him. An invisible force wrapped around Imperial Emperor Heavenly Cloud's corpse and moved it to the side. Countless soil and stones covered the corpse, forming a graveyard. Imperial Emperor Heavenly Cloud, rest in peace, Dongbo Shuang said softly. Dongbo Shuang left the meteorite with his wife. He used his luminous sun force to explore the endless stream of water and began to fly forward at high speed. This huge silver stream of water was more than 18 trillion kilometers in diameter. It was too huge. They couldn't travel through space in this stream of water, so they could only fly continuously. Along the way, the husband and wife experienced many hardships. They had encountered purple swordfish and other special creatures in the stream of water. These creatures had existed since the birth of the Lake Island, and they were chased crazily. They even deliberately created a deity avatar to confuse the enemy. They also encountered undercurrents many times. Later on, they became more and more experienced. They could judge the undercurrent's approach by the speed of the flow of water. They could even judge the approach of some terrifying creatures. It took a total of 11 years. That's right. The huge silver water ball flew in from the surface of the island. After passing through the endless stream of water, Dongbo Shuang and the others spent more than 11 years before they finally began to approach the core of the island. Boom! They passed through an invisible barrier. The water flow was isolated. The black-robed youth and the silver-haired, white-robed woman looked at the huge island in shock. The island was isolated from the water flow, and the entire island was silver-white in color. It was covered in countless layers of frost, and the cold air caused Dongbo Shuang and his wife to shiver uncontrollably. The lake island was naturally far smaller than the silver water ball. However, according to the intelligence reports, it was still more than 1 trillion kilometers wide. Jing Qiu, it really wasn't easy. We've finally arrived at this lake island. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. On the way through the water layer, I thought I was going to lose my life time and time again. Jing Qiu nodded as well. This journey had been too difficult. We've come at the right time. Right now the entire lake island is covered in frost. It's much safer here. Jing Qiu said. We have to hurry and find my father. We have to find that true god weapon. Right, we can't take the path that my father and the others usually take. Withered Tree Old Mother, Nanyang Palace Head, and the others are watching us. We have to avoid them as much as possible. You decide, Dongbo Shuang said. I hope that we can save my father before the lake island turns hot, Jing Qiu said. The temperature of the lake island was constantly changing. It would gradually become extremely cold, and when it reached an extreme it would slowly turn hot, and eventually reach extreme heat. Extreme cold and extreme heat were two extremes. Those cultivators who came to enter the Lake Heart Island, even powerful existences, weren't willing to enter under the extreme heat, because at that time the danger level of the lake island would rapidly increase. Chapter 542. Dongbu Shuiying and Jing Qiu were currently flying at high speed above the ice-cold Lake Heart Island. Due to the size of the island, there were many caves as well. The region my father entered is rather far from here, Jing Qiu said. We'll enter from here and gradually approach my father. All right. Dongbu Shuiying nodded. Suddenly, he frowned as he looked into the distance. 2 streaks of light were flying over. Ha ha. Isn't that your highness Dongbu? 2 figures streaked across the sky and descended. They were 2 stage 4 world deities with vast auras. One was a plump man dressed in purple robes with 2 feelers growing out of his head. The other was an ordinary human world deity, but he carried a large black ruler on his back and wore a black robe. He had the appearance of a cold middle-aged man. The 2 took the initiative to walk over. The purple-robed fatty said, "Your Highness Dongbu, I visited you a few days ago. Do you still remember me?" Monarch Armadillo Jade? Dongbu Shuiying laughed. I didn't think we'd meet on Lake Heart Island. Lake Heart Island is so big. Fu Qiong and I discovered your highness from afar, so we rushed over immediately, the plump Monarch Armadillo Jade said. The cold middle-aged man, King Fu Qiong, cupped his hands in greeting. Your highness. King Fu Qiong, I've long heard of your fame. Dongbu Shuiying said politely, and this is... Monarch Armadillo Jade looked at the masked silver-haired woman. She was emitting the aura of a stage 4 world deity. There were only so many stage 4 world deities in the entire deity world and Dark Abyss. This is a good friend of mine, Empress Nine Swords, Dongbu Shuiying said. Jing Qiu glanced at Dongbu Shuiying. Greetings, Nine Swords, the 2 said in unison. They were puzzled as to where this Empress Nine Swords had come from. Your Highness, just the 2 of you are preparing to enter Lake Heart Island? Armadillo Jade asked. Yes, walking the line between life and death can sharpen one's Tao heart, Dongbu Shuiying said. If your highness doesn't mind, shall the 2 of us accompany you? Armadillo Jade and King Fu Qiong were clearly prepared for this. Dongbu Shuiying and Jing Qiu looked at each other. This time they were going to enter from a relatively unfamiliar cave. The dangers were unpredictable, and the 2 of them were indeed too weak. Monarch Armadillo Jade and King Fu Qiong were much more experienced than the 2 of them, especially Monarch Armadillo Jade, whose strength was extremely profound. He was probably on par with eldest senior brother Huiming. He was indeed a good helper. Ha ha ha, brother Armadillo Jade is willing to join us. We couldn't be happier. Dongbu Shuiying said. However, we are preparing to enter from the cave in front. I wonder if the 2 of you will be entering together? It's just up ahead? Armadillo Jade and King Fu Qiong stared at the nearby cave in astonishment. King Fu Qiong furrowed his brows and said, Your Highness Dongbo, there aren't many great existences that enter this cave. It's better for us to enter a cave we are more familiar with. That way we will have a greater chance of success. But it's harder to find opportunities in a cave we are too familiar with. Dongbu Shuiying shook his head. I've decided to enter from here. If the 2 of you aren't willing, we'll have to split up. This... King Fu Qiong and Monarch Armadillo Jade looked at each other. They soon came to a decision. The 2 of them had taken the initiative to join because they wanted to form a friendship with Dongbu Shuiying. After all, it was easy to form a friendship after experiencing a life and death situation together. Fu Qiong, why don't you accompany this Highness Dongbo? Even if it means risking your life, it's still possible for you to form a good relationship with him. If you can get closer to His Highness Dongbo, when His Highness reaches the strength of a paragon in the future, just a little bit of guidance will be enough for you to benefit immeasurably, Monarch Armadillo Jade advised. The strength of a paragon was at the level of the 3 ancestors. The 3 ancestors belonged to the Bloodshed God Palace. There were many others like Monarch Green, Mysterious North Imperial Empress, and others who were free and did not rely on any side. They were all respectfully addressed as paragons. All right. King Fu Qiong immediately came to a decision. Furthermore, I feel that since Highness Dongbo dares to enter, he might have something he can rely on. Who knows, he might have obtained some sort of secret treasure map, Monarch Armadillo Jade transmitted. The 2 of them came to a decision. Dongbu Shuiying and Jing Qiu were both startled, but they were inwardly delighted. With 2 powerful helpers joining them, their chances of success would increase by a few notches. This time, they had come purely to fulfill their desire to save Monarch Mo Shui. In reality, however, the danger of the Lake Heart Island historical remain was such that their chances of success did not even reach 10%. But no matter how low their chances of success were, they had still come. They had already prepared themselves for failure. I'll scout ahead. I've cultivated a secret technique that allows my eyes to see through all illusions, Monarch Armadillo Jade said. His eyes had become incomparably deep, and there seemed to be a vortex within them. All right. Dongbu Shuiying, Jing Qiu, Monarch Armadillo Jade, and King Fuqiong were all extremely powerful, and so they were able to quickly coordinate with each other. The four of them carefully entered the cave. The cave was so deep that they couldn't see the end of it. Dongbu Shuiying and the others continued to carefully advance. Occasionally they would encounter a fork in the road. Be careful. There seems to be something terrifying lurking in one of the forks, Monarch Armadillo Jade sent mentally. The four of them were all carrying treasures that could isolate them from detection, making it extremely difficult for enemies to discover them. Alas, the dangers of the Lake Heart Island were far greater than they had imagined. No matter how much they wanted to avoid it, it would be very difficult to avoid it completely. Oh! Dongbu Shuiying and the others took a closer look as they passed through the fork in the road. Deep within the fork, there was a statue of ice there, but the eyes beneath the statue were scarlet red. They were staring in the direction of Dongbu Shuiying and the others. Or perhaps it was more accurate to say that the ice statue was staring in the direction of the fork. Dongbu Shuiying and the others all felt their hearts clench. Hurry up and leave. They all had a bad feeling about this. Moments after they left, cracks began to appear on the ice statue, and soon countless chunks of ice shattered, revealing a black-armored, muscular warrior. This warrior had a single horn that reached the heavens, and his face was covered with yellow fur. His eyes were scarlet red, and he was staring in the direction of the fork. The corners of his lips curled upwards slightly. It's been too long. Finally, some outsiders have passed through this place. I've just awakened, so there's no rush to kill them. I'll take it slow and kill them at the last moment. I hope you can hold on for a bit longer. Whoosh! The black-armored warrior's body touched the icy walls. Then he quickly melted into them and disappeared. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? Monarch Armadillo Jade, who was walking in front, looked around with an ugly expression on his face. Your Highness Dongbua, are you really going to keep going? We don't have any experience in this cave, and we don't know what lies ahead. Just follow this path, Dongbu Shuiying said. The safer path was being watched by Withered Tree Old Mother and the rest. Monarch Armadillo Jade was muttering to himself. I've already discovered 3 paths of danger, but this Dongbu Shuiying and that Empress of the 9 Swords have yet to discover a single one. Could it be that they didn't have anything to rely on in this cave? This is really troublesome. Because of the secret technique, Monarch Armadillo Jade was extremely proficient in detecting danger. His eyes scanned the surroundings, and the profound mysteries of the laws of heaven and earth appeared in his eyes. Even the slightest movement from afar would cause a slight change in the world, and he would be able to detect it. Be careful, there's a power approaching us at high speed. Let's flee quickly. Monarch Armadillo Jade hurriedly flew forward, at the same time releasing a formless world deity energy that enveloped Dongbu Shuiying and the rest. Their flying speed suddenly exploded, reaching a speed of 600,000 kilometers per second. This caused Dongbu Shuiying and Jing Qiu to be somewhat speechless. Even they, husband and wife, could not reach such a high speed. Furthermore, he was bringing 3 people along with him. Monarch Armadillo Jade's reputation was indeed incredible. Boom! Behind them, a figure tore through the ice and charged into the cave. One could vaguely make out a creature clad in black armor galloping on 4 hooves. However, it soon disappeared, tunneling into the cave walls. It's approaching us at an extremely fast speed. Monarch Armadillo Jade was already moving at an extremely fast speed, while carrying Dongbu Shuiying and the rest. However, at this moment he was somewhat anxious. It doesn't even need to make any turns within the mountain. Everything is moving in a straight line, and it's approaching us at its fastest speed. I'm afraid it'll catch up in a few breaths' time. Prepare for battle. Chapter 543. As Dongbu Shuiying and the others were fleeing through the complicated tunnels of the cave, deep within the mountain not too far away from them, Kakaka. One statue after another covered in ice began to shatter. Some were black-armored warriors, some were black-armored flying beasts, and some were black-armored wild beasts. All of them had awoken from their slumber. Looks like Lake Heart Island has entered the frigid ice phase again. The moment we woke up, we were frozen solid. Still, that's fine. If it were the frigid ice phase, the surroundings would be distorted, and it would be even more uncomfortable. A flood dragon-like creature covered in a layer of black armor had awoken as well. It had 2 horns on its head, and a hint of joy could be seen in its golden eyes. Oh, these old fellows are still alive and well. Whoosh! The black flood dragon-like creature touched the walls of the cave, instantly disappearing. Soon, in a rather spacious space, numerous black-armored warriors, flying beasts, and walking beasts all hurried over. Ha ha ha, blind old man, long time no see. I'm so happy to see your old face. Hey, isn't it young Master Soaring Feather? You're still as heroic as ever. Ha ha ha, big brother, you're still alive. As your little brother, I'm afraid that one day I'll wake up, you won't be here anymore. These black-armored creatures were all incomparably happy, and their expressions were filled with gratification. One of them, a giant serpent covered in black armor, said in a booming voice, "Most of our team is still alive. This has something to do with the fact that very few outsiders enter this region. I hope that outsiders come more often. That way we'll be able to wake up a bit longer. If too many outsiders come, we'll be in danger of dying. Defeating us would be easy, but killing us, humph humph. That'll be very difficult. Haven't you heard? There are quite a few regions of Lake Heart Island that have been invaded by true god hegemons. Many old fellows like us were instantly transformed into dust. In front of hegemons, we didn't even have time to flee. True god hegemons wouldn't dare to act rashly in Master's territory. These black-armored creatures were all chatting amongst themselves. Although we're neither dead nor alive, it's all thanks to Master. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to transcend and become mighty figures. Logically speaking, we should have died a long time ago. But Master has allowed us to live until now, a black purple-eyed bird said in a sharp voice. Master has indeed done countless cultivators a great favor. We weren't able to transcend and become true gods. That's because our comprehension abilities are poor. Master has already helped us a lot. However, we've woken up on this island countless times, but it's been a very, very long time since we've sensed the presence of our Master. These black creatures sighed among themselves, even reminiscing about the past. Even so, they could still sense the presence of Dongbua Shuiying and the other 3 who were trying to escape. Don't be in a hurry to act. We have to let the invaders feel that this area is relatively safe and spread the news. In the future, more invaders will be willing to come here. We can also wake up frequently. The feeling of sleeping all the time is really uncomfortable, a burly warrior in black armor said. 3 stage for world deities, and 1 should be a stage 3 world deity who has cultivated an absolute art. They're too weak. There's no need to chase after them too ruthlessly. A small black-armored bird that was currently flying in the surroundings chirped. Let them play around a little more. The truly important areas are all heavily guarded. With their meager strength, they're simply courting death. Within an ice-cold cave, a 4-hooved black-armored creature pounced over with incomparable savagery. Its usage of the laws of profound mysteries was extremely low. What it relied on was its terrifying strength and speed, as well as the sharpness of its claws. Humph! The spear in Dongbua Shuiying's hand pierced through the air. His surroundings seemed to be filled with a myriad of phenomena. Everything appeared beautiful and resplendent. This spear strike caused everyone to feel the beauty and splendor of the myriad existences in the world. One of the 3 great secret skills, life. This move was the result of Dongbua Shuiying's comprehension of the beauty of the myriad existences in the world. Beauty was just an appearance, but the essence of it was life force. A life force that could move one's heart. This spear strike of Dongbua Shuiying's contained a kind of spirituality and toughness. It was like a small grass that grew out from the cracks of a rock, like a speck of green in a dry desert, like the drifting rain. It was unleashed at will, containing the spirituality of the world, allowing it to have a myriad of transformations. Pung! After the spear pierced out, it instantly vibrated with power. In an instant it transformed into 320 different forms of force. This move life was truly unpredictable. There was no need to deliberately control it, as doing so would cause one to be at a disadvantage. What was required was comprehension. Even if one comprehended it, it would be extremely hard to describe. Dongbua Shuiying could only comprehend it based on his spirit. The four-hooved black-armored creature staggered and smashed into a nearby rock wall, causing countless layers of ice to shatter. However, it did not suffer any injuries at all as it continued to madly pounce over. "Ho, too weak. You can't injure me at all." The four-hooved black-armored creature roared madly as it chased after it. Humph! King Fuqiong, wielding the black great ruler, also made his move. This black great ruler seemed slow, but it was actually extremely fast. As it slammed out, the surrounding time and space began to change. The entire world seemed to be changing. The four-hooved black-armored creature was actually unable to dodge, and its claws could not even touch the great ruler. The black great ruler directly smashed into the head of the black-armored creature. With a dong, the power of the great ruler was transmitted into the creature's body. However, the black-armored creature was sent smashing into the ground of the cavern, leaving behind a deep trench and a large number of cracks on the ice. Even so, it continued to chase after Fuqiong, completely unharmed. This creature seems to have an average understanding of the laws of profound mysteries. It's only at the stage 3 world deity level. Dongbua Shuiying transmitted. In fact, in terms of the exquisiteness of its techniques, it's slightly weaker than me. However, its strength, speed, defenses, and even the sharpness of its claws are all inconceivable. Its speed can reach a speed of 600,000 kilometers per second. Its strength is actually slightly higher than mine, and its claws are even sharper and more terrifying than our blood-refined deity weapons. Furthermore, no matter how we attack, we are unable to harm it. Fortunately, its level of cultivation is low. King Fuqiong transmitted. By relying on our level of cultivation, we were able to suppress it. Pung! Suddenly, Monarch Armadillo Jade kicked the black-armored creature in the face, causing it to slam into the stone walls of the cavern. Countless pieces of ice shattered, and the creature tumbled several times before finally landing on the ground. The black-armored creature glared at Dongbua Shuiying and the other three, then swung its tail. With a low growl, it turned around and slammed into the stone wall to the side. However, it completely disappeared without a trace. It gave up? Dongbua Shuiying and the others heaved sighs of relief. After being suppressed by us for so long, of course it had to give up. Monarch Armadillo Jade rubbed his chubby face. But we can't rejoice too early. Its level of cultivation is clearly very ordinary, but the four of us were able to completely suppress it. In a one-on-one fight, its defenses are invincible, its speed and strength are terrifying, and its level of cultivation is only slightly lower than His Highness Dongbua's. In a one-on-one fight, it won't be easy to deal with. Dongbua Shuiying and the others nodded in agreement. In a one-on-one fight, even Dongbua Shuiying had no confidence in himself. After all, even if they attacked with all their might, none of their attacks would be able to harm the creature. It would be far too difficult to defeat an enemy with invincible defenses. Your Highness Dongbua, Empress of the Nine Swords, I have to warn you that this black-armored creature isn't the only one in the area, Monarch Armadillo Jade transmitted solemnly. I can sense that there are even more terrifying killing intents in the area. I have to warn you that Fuqiong and I do not have the confidence to deal with them. The two of us are willing to accompany His Highness on this journey, but Your Highness, you must be prepared. If you do not have the confidence to rely on, you should give up as soon as possible. Let's continue forward. Dongbua Shuiying and Jingqiu glanced at each other. Then Dongbua Shuiying said, "The road ahead is dangerous, but I will lead the way." Of course, he would lead the way in the direction of the true immortal treasure. Lead the way. Monarch Armadillo Jade and King Fuqiong's heart stirred. It seemed that His Highness Dongbua really did have some sort of treasure map. However, there were quite a number of such maps. Some were extremely valuable, while others were extremely valuable. I'm just afraid that we'll all die before we reach our destination. Monarch Armadillo Jade muttered helplessly. So what if we die? Just a clone. Let's hurry. King Fuqiong frowned. Oh, how domineering. Fuqiong, if there's any danger later, you go first. Monarch Armadillo Jade teased as he continued forward. At this moment there was indeed a large group of black creatures in the surroundings, secretly watching their weak group. They were in no hurry to attack. Chapter 544. Who is leading the way? Why are they heading towards the blazing blood gate? The black-armored flood dragon's golden eyes were filled with doubt. Do they have some sort of map that leads them to the blazing blood gate? Humph! A sharp voice rang out from the side. An enormous black-armored bird sneered. You're thinking too much. Just based on the strength of their team? If they knew of the existence of the blazing blood gate, they would have long since taken a different route. Back when we were Stage 4 world deities, we came to Lake Heart Island and knew of the blazing blood gate. But who would dare to barge into it? If they really were to barge into the blazing blood gate, the 4 of them would most likely lose their lives. Even if they chose not to barge into it, it would be difficult for them to survive just by passing through. The blazing blood gate. That place is truly terrifying. Even before the gate opens, it is already dangerous. The moment it opens, it will be a nightmare. These black-armored lifeforms all sighed. None of them dared to barge into the blazing blood gate, as they knew their limits. What should we do, then? If the 4 of them die there, they will think that this region is too dangerous. It will be a long time before any other cultivators enter this region. At that time we will have to continue our slumber. Amen. These black-armored lifeforms all began to feel vexed. They still had a duty to fulfill. If Dongbu Shuiying and the others were to approach some of the more important regions, they would still act. But before that, they still hoped to let the 4 of them live a little longer. In fact, if their luck was good, they might even obtain some treasures. That way, more and more invaders would enter this region. However, they could not take the initiative to hand over treasures. After all, the moment they violated their duty, they would be annihilated. Chase after them and force them to change directions. Tell them to go in another direction. There's a fork in the road 15 million kilometers ahead. Tell them to change directions there. As long as they change directions, they won't encounter the blazing blood gate. These black-armored lifeforms immediately made their decision. Dongbu Shuiying and the others were flying at an extremely fast speed. In a single second, they could cover close to 600,000 miles. In just a short while, they had already covered tens of millions of miles. Hong Long Long, a cruel battle was currently taking place. Shuiying and the other 3 had encountered the most intense battle ever since they entered the cavern. A very terrifying black-armored, tall and sturdy warrior had come to deal with them. This black-armored warrior's combat power was extremely strong, and it was estimated that he could match up to powerful existences. Dongbu Shuiying and the other 3 were also resisting with all their might. Pooh! King Fuqiong spat out a mouthful of blood. A huge spell formation appeared around him, and numerous black rulers appeared, attacking the black-armored warrior in a frenzy. The black-armored burly warrior wielded his great axe. Every single move he made contained terrifying destructive power. Even in a place like the Lake Heart Island where the laws of the world were extremely strong, every strike he made would cause a black hole to appear in the surrounding space. Let's escape. There's a fork here. Let's escape to another path. Monarch Armadillo Jade sent mentally. It's too tiring. We can't hold on for much longer. In addition, this black-armored aberration is only blocking us from the front. He seems to be guarding this path. Let's just follow this path. Jingqiu sent mentally. Right, let's follow this path. Dongbu Shuiying sent mentally as well. If they changed directions, they would be moving in the opposite direction from where the true divinity artifact was hidden. King Fuqiong sent mentally as well. This black-armored aberration is blocking us. Could it be that he's trying to lure us into another path? That path might contain a trap. That's possible, Monarch Armadillo Jade agreed. One side was extremely powerful, while the other side was made up of 4 people working together. Dongbu Shuiying was using one of his 3 secret techniques. The domain-type secret technique, known as prison. Jingqiu and King Fuqiong were using their blood-refined deity weapons to attack as well. Monarch Armadillo Jade was even more powerful, and he would always attack at critical moments, allowing the 4 of them to join forces perfectly. After battling for a while, Dongbu Shuiying and the others finally broke through the blockade and continued to flee at high speed. The black-armored, gray-tex-wielding warrior did not pursue them. Instead, He watched coldly as they left, then frowned and murmured to himself, "They insist on taking this path no matter what. I'm helping them so that they don't die too quickly. And yet, they're still charging forward of their own volition. Forget it. There's nothing we can do to help them. If they want to die, so be it." Although his voice echoed throughout the area, the surrounding region was completely isolated from all detection, preventing Dongbo Shuiying and the others from hearing him. This was their duty, and they didn't dare to disobey it. Although they had their own selfish motives, they could only do what was necessary within the scope of their duty. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dongbo Shuiying and the others were resting within a certain passageway. Monarch Fuqiong and Jingqiu had suffered relatively heavy injuries. Monarch Armadillo Jade was the most slippery and intelligent of them all, and so he wasn't injured at all. As for Dongbo Shuiying, his luminous sun force had given him incredible strength and speed, and he was quite skilled in close combat. As a result, his injuries were relatively light. Jingqiu and Monarch Fuqiong weren't particularly skilled in close combat. Their supreme techniques were more suited to formation-based techniques. Fortunately, these black-armored aberrations seemed to be in charge of different regions. If they had joined forces, we probably would have died long ago, Monarch Armadillo Jade muttered. That one just now was too powerful. The four of us only just barely managed to hold him off. Dongbo Shuiying was solemn as well. Fortunately, we had Monarch Armadillo Jade. If we had to rely on ourselves, the other three would probably have been killed by him in no time. Monarch Armadillo Jade was indeed more powerful than the three of them. He was able to control the flow of battle and attack at critical moments. His combat prowess was something that even Dongbo Shuiying admired wholeheartedly. He truly lived up to his reputation as someone who was almost as powerful as eldest apprentice brother Huiming. It was no exaggeration to say that he was on par with eldest apprentice brother Huiming. "I've only lived for a few years in vain." Monarch Armadillo Jade rubbed his chin, feeling quite pleased with himself. "Let's go. Let's keep advancing," Monarch Fuqiong said. "If we stay here for too long, we might run into danger." Let's keep going." Dongbo Shuiying nodded as well. The four of them advanced stealthily. The rest of the journey was much safer. Occasionally, they would be attacked by black-armored aberrations, but their strength was still within the range of what they could endure. In the end, there were still very few aberrations with the power of a major power. A black-armored bird cawed, then instantly split into over 1,000 bodies that simultaneously attacked Dongbo Shuiying's group of four. The four of them continued to flee while simultaneously defending against the attacks. By working together, they were able to hold on. Be careful up ahead." Monarch Armadillo Jade suddenly sent. Dongbo Shuiying was also paying close attention to what was ahead of them. Ahead of them was an empty mountain, and within the mountain, there was a blood-red disc. With Dongbo Shuiying's group's vision, they could still see it clearly despite their vision being obstructed. It was a massive disc that was at least 1,000,000 kilometers in circumference. The disc was red in color, and it was covered with carvings of swords and sabers. "Does it look like a door?" Dongbo Shuiying was puzzled. This massive disc looked like a circular door that had been placed on the ground. There was a vertical mark in the center of the disc that looked like a door that could be pushed open. A door that's placed flat on the ground? Dongbo Shuiying stared at the carvings of swords and sabers, as well as the blood-red patterns on the disc. He could sense a boundless killing intent and a bloody aura emanating from it. All of them, including Monarch Armadillo Jade, were experts. Naturally, they could sense this formless threat. This was far more terrifying than the black-armored aberrations they had encountered earlier. Dongbo Shuiying and the others were extremely fast, and they soon arrived at the mountain. The black-armored bird that had been chasing after them had also stopped. It cawed as it watched from afar, and was no longer in a rush to act. "Everyone be careful. Be careful of those ice sculptures," Monarch Armadillo Jade transmitted. Dongbo Shuiying also noticed that there were 2 rows of ice sculptures on both sides of the mountain. There were many of them, and there were at least 100 of them. They can't all be monsters, right? Jingqiu transmitted to Dongbo Shuiying. Within the Lake Heart Island historical remains, there are many monsters that were transformed from ice sculptures. Don't scare yourself. Even though there are many monsters that were transformed from ice sculptures, it doesn't mean that every single one of them is a monster. Dongwu Shuang felt his heart turning numb. Any one of those black armored aberrations was hard to deal with, and there were 2 rows of ice sculptures neatly arranged in front of them. If all of them were monsters, how could the 4 of them defend against them? I can sense a bloody aura coming from that disc, as well as an incomparably terrifying suppression. It's even more frightening than the 3 ancestors of your bloodshed god palace. Monarch Armadillo Jade's eyes were deep as he observed everything. He transmitted, everyone be careful. Don't alarm anything. Be gentle and avoid that disc. We'll quickly pass through this mountain. Don't touch anything. MN Dongwu Shuang, Jing Xiao and King Fuqiong all agreed. They could all feel the unseen threat from that disc. Let's go, Monarch Armadillo Jade ordered. The 4 of them immediately turned into streams of light and flew past the disc. They did not even dare to touch the ground. But just as they were about to fly, the ice on the surface of the 2 rows of neatly arranged ice sculptures began to crack, revealing pairs of eyes that had already opened. They were all looking at Shui Ying and the other 3, who were about to fly through the ice. Chapter 545. Not good. Shui Ying felt his true deity heart tremble. For a moment he even felt his vision turning dark. His ears were ringing, and his heartbeat was accelerating. The blood in his body was surging chaotically, and his consciousness could no longer see his surroundings clearly. The fluctuation of consciousness is actually able to directly impact my true deity heart? This. Although his willpower was extraordinary, he still instinctively felt fear. It was like an ant being trampled by a human's foot. This was an indescribable fear. One had to know that Shui Ying was a stage 3 world deity. Even ordinary powerful existences would not be able to suppress him with a single glance, causing his true deity heart to tremble so much that he could not see his surroundings clearly. And now, the hundreds of ice sculptures were simultaneously gazing at him with murderous intent. Under these gazes, his ears rang, his heart raced, his blood raced, his eyes could not see clearly, and his true deity heart trembled. How can this be? As a stage 4 world deity, Jing Qiu also felt her true deity heart tremble. Her vision began to blur, and even the world deity energy in her body was difficult to control. How can this place be so terrifying? I can't possibly be powerless when facing an almighty. Not good. Run. King Fuqiong and Jing Qiu were in a similar situation. They could no longer control the energy in their bodies. Roar! Monarch Armadillo Jade let out a low roar with a sinister expression. He had cultivated for many years and possessed many secret techniques. His true deity heart had long since been nurtured to an incomparably powerful level. Although he was currently being attacked by the terrifying consciousness fluctuations, he was still able to maintain his battle prowess. He opened his mouth and let out an angry roar. This roar carried with it a unique fluctuation that rapidly swept out, attacking the consciousness fluctuations and reducing their impact. Only then did Dongwu Shuang, Jing Qiu, and King Fuqiong feel slightly better. All of them could now see clearly what was happening before them. As for the hundreds of ice sculptures, their outer layer of ice had completely fallen off, revealing their true appearances. Every one of them was a warrior wearing blood-red armor. Some had human heads, some had beast heads, and some had metal heads. All of them were staring at Dongwu Shuiying's group of 4 with murderous intent, as if they were looking at 4 clowns. You dare come to the blazing blood door with this level of strength? One of the blood-red armored warriors sneered. Boom! 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 This is going to be troublesome, Your Highness Dongwu. Your directions are too good. Monarch Armadillo Jade laughed bitterly. How can he be so strong? Dongwu Shuiying couldn't believe it either, because according to what he knew, in the ordinary area of the Lake Heart Island ruins, an ordinary almighty strength could withstand it. The deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. In the end, even Bloodblade and the Temporal Island Lord had to stop. But this place was not as deep as the place where Monarch Mo Shui hid the true god weapon. It shouldn't be so dangerous. Let's go all out, King Fuqiong said telepathically, a hint of madness in his eyes. Let's go all out. Jing Qiu also had a giant sword floating around her. The giant sword was faintly discernible. Kill! The 4 blood-armored warriors surrounding them moved. Among them was a female warrior with an enchanting figure. A vertical eye suddenly appeared between her eyebrows. The vertical eye suddenly shot out a red ray of light, which directly shot towards the only female in Dongbo Shuiying's team, Jing Qiu. Jing Qiu felt her heart tremble with fear. Gap. She instantly understood that there was a huge gap between them. This was the most terrifying opponent she had encountered since entering the Lake Heart Island ruins. Hua. The giant sword floating in front of Jing Qiu instantly split into 9 thin swords. The 9 thin swords formed a resplendent star chart. The star chart was resplendent, and countless stars were faintly discernible within it. This star chart blocked in front of Jing Qiu, and when the red ray of light hit it, the huge star chart froze. Even the 9 thin swords were frozen in midair, not moving in the slightest. Jing Qiu did not expect that her blood-refined deity weapon would be frozen in place the moment they started fighting. This caused a sense of helplessness to rise in her heart. She even wondered if she had been too arrogant in coming to the ruins of Lake Heart Island. Had she been too wrong? Hong. There was also a blood-armored warrior wielding a saber. He had a thin figure and a pair of polychoria pupils. With a single step, he crossed the distance between them and arrived beside King Fuqiong. He brandished his saber, but it created a myriad of afterimages. Even King Fuqiong, a stage 4 world deity, could not tell which was the real saber. Pu. King Fuqiong controlled the giant wooden ruler to construct an array in an attempt to block the attack, but his body was instantly split into a myriad of pieces. As it turned out, every single one of those myriad saber images was real. Every single one of them possessed terrifying might. Humph! The enchanting woman with the vertical eye between her eyebrows suddenly changed her target. The red ray of light shot out from her vertical eye landed on the myriad of pieces of King Fuqiong's shattered body. Immediately, King Fuqiong's body, which had been about to reunite, was completely frozen. Every single piece of his body shattered and was annihilated. King Fuqiong was annihilated, dying on the spot. He was the first person to die in the group. As for Dongbo Shuiying, Jing Qiu, and Monarch Armadillo Jade, they didn't have the time to be angry. Ha! Accompanied by vigorous laughter, a gigantic golden fist smashed towards Monarch Armadillo Jade. At the same time, a majestic warrior waved his hairy black palm and attacked Dongbo Shuiying. Prison. Dongbo Shuiying's countless dazzling rays of white light finally bound and extended towards the 4 blood-armored warriors. Although his luminous sun force was fast, the bewitching red light and the blade-wielding warriors from before were even faster. However, his luminous sun force was omnipresent, and it had now completely enveloped the entire battlefield. It began to bind the enemies. It was one of the 3 great secret techniques prison. After Dongbo Shuiying's realm had increased, this secret technique had changed as well. It was no longer like the chains that bound and entangled the enemy. Instead, it was a gentle binding technique that was flexible yet omnipresent. Countless luminous sun forces worked together to bind and affect the enemy at all times. If it were used against stage 4 world deities, it would indeed be a powerful technique, but against these blood-armored warriors it was somewhat weak. Roar! Monarch Armadillo Jade opened his bloody maw and madly roared. As he roared, circles of black ripples spread out, fanning out towards the 4 blood-armored warriors. Wherever the black ripples passed, many small chaos holes would appear with a crackling sound. The 4 blood-armored warriors couldn't avoid the black ripples at all, and they were hit by the impact of the black ripples. For a moment, the 4 blood-armored warriors were all startled. Among them, the majestic warrior covered in black hair clutched his head in pain. The other 3 also clearly slowed down and looked towards Monarch Armadillo Jade. As for the 100 or so blood-armored warriors spectating the battle, they also looked towards Monarch Armadillo Jade. Run! Run! I'm not their match. Monarch Armadillo Jade anxiously roared. At the same time, he grabbed Dongbo Shuiying and Jing Qiu, and increased his speed in an attempt to escape. Escape! The tallest blood-armored warrior sneered at the sight. The golden fist that had stopped due to the roar once again smashed forward. The golden fist rapidly expanded as it was swung, and in the blink of an eye, it practically blocked the path of escape for Dongbo Shuiying and Jing Qiu. Countless divine runes revolved around the golden fist, giving it a terrifying might. Chapter 546. As the huge golden fist came crashing down, the surrounding spacetime began to freeze. Even before the fist arrived, the formless shockwaves had already arrived. This kind of power made Shui Ying and Jing Qiu feel powerless, especially when the gap in combat power between them was so obvious. When the difference in power was so obvious, any resistance would be a joke. Even now, the two of them could not understand. They had not even ventured deep into the Lake Heart Island, so how could they have encountered such danger? Were they really that unlucky? Facing this fist, Jing Qiu controlled the 9 swords to transform into a dazzling vortex of starry space, charging straight at it. Donghua Shuiying used his luminous sun force to unleash his domain-type secret technique, Prison, to barely disrupt his opponent. At the same time, he used the spear in his hand to unleash his secret technique, Life. He did not even dare to use Destruction to clash head-on, because he knew that if he did so, he would be easily crushed. Monarch Armadillo Jade charged at the very front, his body suddenly transforming into a huge 4-hoofed mutated beast. This mutated beast even had 2 soft feelers on its head. This 4-hoofed mutated beast stepped through the void, lowered its head, and charged straight at Donghua Shuiying. Peng! The huge golden fist collided head-on with the 4-hoofed mutated beast's head. Peng peng peng! The resulting shockwaves caused the surrounding void to explode. Donghua Shuiying's spear also spun and pierced through the layers of shockwaves, but its speed was greatly reduced. The golden fist was retracted by the impact. As for the 4-hoofed mutated beast that Monarch Armadillo Jade had transformed into, its entire body trembled from the impact of the golden fist, and then began to crumble. This scene caused both Donghua Shuiying and Jing Qiu to be shocked. Monarch Armadillo Jade was the strongest member of their team. If Monarch Armadillo Jade died in battle, then they would have no hope of escaping at all. Hua hua hua. In mid-air, Monarch Armadillo Jade's crumbling body transformed into a torrent of black water, which then condensed into the shape of a mutated beast. This mutated beast's life-saving secret technique is quite powerful. The tallest blood-armored warrior frowned and immediately transmitted. Although my techniques can suppress it, I'm afraid I won't be able to kill it. We'll have to join forces and kill it. Yes. The enchanting woman and the muscular black-haired warrior both nodded in agreement. Their experience was extraordinary, and they could tell that this stage 4-world deity who had transformed into a mutated beast was only close to a powerful existence in terms of direct combat strength. However, he was much more formidable when it came to his life-saving secret techniques. He had already cultivated them to an extremely high realm, and if not for the fact that they could restrain him, even ordinary powerful existences would have a hard time killing him. There are only 3 of them left. I'll leave them to you. The knife-wielding man stood to the side and did not attack again. It was as if he disdained to bully them with numbers. Amazing! When Donghua Shuiying and Jing Qiu saw that Monarch Armadillo Jade had fully recovered, they couldn't help but be overjoyed. They could see that his body had turned into a stream of water, but that was because his power had not been damaged at all. Monarch Armadillo Jade is truly powerful. He is usually a joker, but his ability to stay alive is so strong. Donghua Shuiying exclaimed inwardly. Let's go. Monarch Armadillo Jade, who had transformed into a mutated beast, had water flowing around his body, completely enveloping Donghua Shuiying and Jing Qiu as he continued his escape. Escape! A red beam of light shot out from the center of the alluring woman's brows once again, instantly landing on Monarch Armadillo Jade's body. However, the water flowing around his body did not solidify. The blood-armored black-furred warrior beside her shook his head and did not make a move. He knew that his techniques would not be able to do anything to an opponent with such powerful survivability. Boom! It was still that terrifying golden fist, which caused Monarch Armadillo Jade's body to explode once more. However, the dissipating water continued to protect Donghua Shuiying and Jing Qiu as they struggled with all their might. Rip! The alluring woman appeared as well. Her glowing green claws grabbed onto the water flowing around Monarch Armadillo Jade's body. In an instant, some green threads began to seep through the water flowing around Monarch Armadillo Jade's body. Roar! 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 Monarch Armadillo Jade roared like a madman. He did not retaliate at all. He was relying entirely on the power of his life-saving secret technique, in an attempt to escape. After more than 10 exchanges, Monarch Armadillo Jade carried Dongbua Shuiying and Jing Qiu and charged out of the spacious mountain. They continued to flee along the corridor. They're escaping? They're running away just like that? The 4 blood-armored warriors stood in the air above the mountain, watching the water flow fly away. They did not give chase. It looks like they don't know about the blazing blood door. They're just passing by. The alluring woman laughed softly. Third brother, if you had attacked just now, he probably would not have been able to escape. Of the 4 of them, the blade-wielding man was the fastest. If he had tried to stop them with all his might, it would indeed have been difficult for Monarch Armadillo Jade to escape. Humph! The blade-wielding man shook his head. His strength is indeed average, the tallest of the 4 said. If he knew about the blazing blood door, he would not have dared to barge into it. If he had taken the initiative to barge into it, all 4 of them would have died. So far only 2 have died. The other 2 are still alive. They're quite lucky, the black-furred warrior said. Asterisk whoosh. After fleeing for some distance, Monarch Armadillo Jade sensed that he was no longer being pursued. He stopped and the water flowed back into his human form, returning to his original appearance. Dongbua Shuiying and Jing Qiu heaved a sigh of relief. They didn't chase after us. Dongbua Shuiying glanced behind him. It's all thanks to Monarch Armadillo Jade. If not for him, Dongbua and I would definitely have died there, Jing Qiu said. It's a pity that brother Fu Qiong didn't manage to escape. Dongbua Shuiying shook his head. Dongbua Shuiying and Jing Qiu found it hard to calm down after surviving a calamity. They were still filled with lingering fear. The threat they had faced this time was truly overwhelming. They had been at an absolute disadvantage. Fortunately, Monarch Armadillo Jade's life-preserving abilities were strong. Monarch Armadillo Jade sighed. The enemies were too fast. That blade-wielding man appeared in front of Fu Qiong in the blink of an eye, shattering his body. The alluring woman's strange red light completely annihilated Fu Qiong's body. Fu Qiong died in a single exchange. I wanted to save him, but I didn't have enough time. But it doesn't matter if he's dead. After all, if he hadn't died earlier, it would have been difficult for him to survive. What's wrong? Dongbua Shuiying and Jing Qiu were startled. Monarch Armadillo Jade, why are you so unconfident? Dongbua Shuiying was puzzled. After experiencing the previous battle, Dongbua Shuiying was filled with admiration towards Monarch Armadillo Jade. Monarch Armadillo Jade's life-preserving abilities were probably at the level of a major power. In an ordinary region, Monarch Armadillo Jade should be able to hold on. That alluring woman, aside from using that strange red light, is also extremely skilled in using hexing poisons, Monarch Armadillo Jade said helplessly. I've already been poisoned by the hexing poison. I can't hold on much longer. What? Dongbua Shuiying and Jing Qiu were both shocked. It's true. The hexing poison has already permeated every part of my body. My strength is constantly being consumed, and my body will soon collapse, Monarch Armadillo Jade said helplessly. The hexing poison is too terrifying. Even my damaged Blackwater true body can't hold on. Monarch Armadillo Jade waved his hand. A black ruler, a storage treasure, and a few other items appeared next to him. These are the treasures that Fu Qiong and I brought with us. Monarch Armadillo Jade sat in the corridor, then instructed, Your Highness Dongbua, if the 2 of you are truly lucky enough to make it out alive, help me and Fu Qiong bring these treasures back to us. At the very least, we'll be able to minimize our losses this time. Definitely. Dongbua Shuiying nodded repeatedly, then said helplessly, This time, after entering the ruins of Lake Heart Island, I realized that I'm still too weak. My chances of making it out alive aren't very high. Brother Armadillo Jade, please don't blame me for not being able to bring these treasures out. Haha, I just tried my best. Monarch Armadillo Jade's face suddenly turned green. Monarch Armadillo Jade looked at Dongbua Shuiying. This time we've gone through life and death together. Your Highness Dongbua, we can be considered friends, right? Yes, of course. To have a friend like you, Brother Armadillo Jade, is my fortune. Dongbua Shuiying said hurriedly. Ha ha ha, to be able to be friends with Your Highness Dongbua, my death was worth it. Monarch Armadillo Jade began to laugh loudly. As he laughed, Monarch Armadillo Jade's body completely disintegrated, dissipating into nothingness. Dongbu Shuiying and Jingqiu felt a bit of pain in their hearts as they watched. Brother Fuqiong was dead, and now Monarch Armadillo Jade was dead as well. Only the two of them were left. How much further could they go on this path? Chapter 547. Within the cold cave, Jingqiu could not help but ask, Snow Eagle, weren't we too blind to enter the Lake Heart Island ruins? We were weak to begin with, and we even chose a secluded cave that few cultivators had entered before. Even Monarch Armadillo Jade and the others who came with us died. If not for his protection, we would not have been able to reach this place. Alright, since we're already here, there's no point in thinking too much. Dongbu Shuiying waved his hand to collect the weapons left behind by Monarch Armadillo Jade. You and I were already mentally prepared. Even Brother Armadillo Jade and Brother Fuqiong were prepared to die. Furthermore, if we didn't choose a secluded cave, why would we choose a safer place? I'm afraid that Nanyang Palace Head and the others are on guard there. Jingqiu nodded lightly. This place is not too far from where my father hid the true god weapon. I hope we can reach there alive. Dongbu Shuiying nodded. Before coming here, he was a stage 3 world deity with the luminous sun absolute art. He was considered an expert even amongst stage 4 world deities. With such strength, he could be considered an overlord in the vast deity world. At that time, Dongbu Shuiying was quite satisfied. But this time he had chosen to enter one of the most dangerous ruins in the entire deity world. Only those with the strength of a powerful existence could roam the ordinary regions safely. After coming here, they first saw the corpse of Monarch Heavenly Cloud, and then they were ambushed multiple times in the cave. Monarch Armadillo Jade was the one leading the team. All of these made Dongbu Shuiying feel that he was lacking in strength. Clearly, he was still at the bottom of the group of peak existences in the deity world. But being at the bottom was already something to be proud of. After all, being at the bottom required strength. Just passing through the huge silver-white water ball was not an easy task. We're not far from our destination. Let's continue, Dongbu Shuiying said. The two immediately turned into streams of light and flew through the cave at high speed. In a narrow space within the belly of the mountain that was only 5 million kilometers away from them, there were two black-armored monsters residing there. One of them was a black-armored Dubuarm, and the other was a black-armored, multi-legged beast. Among the weak teams this time, only the one with an extremely powerful life-saving secret technique is somewhat difficult to deal with. The other three are very ordinary. The black-armored many-legged beast said in a low voice, his voice echoing in this narrow space. Now that the other two are dead, there are only two weaker ones left. Big brother, what do we do? Are you going to make the first move or should I? Big brother, I'm afraid you can easily kill them. There are very few outsiders who enter our area. Only when this team of theirs came in did we wake up. The black-scaled Jiao dragon's golden eyes looked into the distance, as if it could see through the obstacles, and saw Dongbu Shuiying and his wife who were fleeing. They're unlucky they managed to pass through the blazing blood door. The blazing blood door must have frightened them. I wonder if more teams will enter from our side in the future. They should be able to tell that the blazing blood gate is unusual. Perhaps when they become stronger in the future, they will purposely come to investigate the blazing blood door. The black-armored many-legged beast said. What you said makes sense. The black-scaled Jiao dragon's eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. The two of them are relatively weak now. You should go and slowly finish them off one by one. At least with your strength they won't feel any fear. Yes, big brother. The black-armored many-legged beast immediately dashed out, and with a dozen of its claws, it slammed into the side of the mountain and penetrated into it. The black-scaled Jiao dragon watched on. In its eyes, Dongbu Shuiying and his wife were too weak. If it were to make a move, it would scare Dongbu Shuiying and his wife. Coming to Lake Heart Island with such meager strength, the black-scaled Jiao dragon shook its head lightly. Dongbu Shuiying and his wife were flying at high speed. However, their speed was much slower than Monarch Armadillo Jade's. That hidden black-armored many-legged beast was rapidly closing in on them. It did not take long for it to catch up to them. However, Dongbu Shuiying and his wife were completely unaware of it. This could not be blamed on them. After all, they were still too immature. There was no need to talk about Dongbu Shuiying, as he was only a stage 3 world deity. Even Jing Qiu had only become a stage 4 world deity not too long ago. She had only comprehended a bit of the heart sword diagram, which was why she was so strong. In terms of scouting, survival, and many other aspects, she was still lacking. As such, they did not even notice the approaching danger. Hong! The black-armored many-legged beast abruptly dashed out of the cave. The surrounding luminous sun force instantly enveloped the many-legged beast, affecting its movements. Dongbu Shui Ying and Jing Qiu instinctively dodged while using their weapons to defend. Dong! The scarlet cloud spear very quickly pierced the bottom of the body of the multi-legged black beast, suddenly lifting it up, causing the multi-legged black beast to roll backwards. Just as it rolled, the body of the multi-legged black beast suddenly soared. Its dozens of hoof claws directly grabbed the mountain wall beside it. The ground, in an instant the ice layer shattered, but its body suddenly stabilized. Ho! A low roar followed. The many-legged beast's body began to emit an incomparably dazzling golden light. This light was so dazzling that Dongbu Shui and his wife were unable to see it clearly. However, with the luminous sun force, they were still able to determine the opponent's movements. Die! Dongbu Shuiying's scarlet cloud spear stabbed out violently. In an instant, 3 spear shadows appeared. Hong! The first spear seemed ordinary. However, a large amount of power began to accumulate along with the spear technique. The second spear caused the surrounding space to distort. The third spear. In an instant, the spear seemed to transform into a point. It was incomparably small, an extremely small point. Of course, this feeling of being small only lasted for an instant. What followed closely was a blinding light. It was incomparably dazzling. The surface of the many-legged beast was still dazzling and ferocious. However, when Dongbu Shuiying stabbed out with his spear, the tip of the spear became a small circle of absolute darkness. Outside of this small circle, there was an incomparably dazzling light. This was also Dongbu Shuiying's strongest killing technique. It was one of the 3 secret techniques, destruction. After seeing Emperor Heavenly Cloud's corpse, Dongbu Shuiying's state of mind changed. Then, he looked at the array diagram of the terrifying array that was made up of hundreds of millions of meteorites. In that array diagram, Dongbu Shuiying comprehended the destruction aspect. At that time, not only Dongbu Shuiying's clone, but even his main body in the Xia People's World's Crimson Rock Mountain was also injured. According to these insights, the main body spent 100 times of time in the Crimson Rock Mountain to recreate the destruction secret technique during the 11 years that he passed through the water layer. Furthermore, after entering the cavern of the Lake Heart Island historical remains, the many battles of life and death had given Shuiying many insights. This destruction secret skill of his had always been in the process of being perfected. Even though Shuiying had yet to reach the level of the ancient array, and could barely grasp the surface of it, it was still the peak of Shuiying's current strength. Dong! The tip of the spear stabbed into the many-legged beast's head. The beast stared at Dongbu Shuiying fiercely and spoke for the first time. A stage 3 world deity can actually hurt me? What a pity, even powerful existences can't kill me. Dongbu Shuiying's heart immediately turned cold. The black-armored monster's defense was invincible, and even his strongest killing technique was useless. What should he do? Hua! The many-legged beast's dozens of claws quickly stepped on the void, and its body moved in a strange manner. On the other side, a huge sword array diagram appeared. Jing Qiu had also made her move. Boom! The black-armored, many-legged beast didn't even try to dodge, forcibly taking the blow with its body. After a brief pause from the collision, it charged forward once more, moving at a speed of nearly 600,000 kilometers per second. Perhaps Monarch Armadillo Jade could suppress it in terms of speed. But Dongbu Shuiying and Jing Qiu were still far from it. The two of them looked at each other. Their strength was inferior, and their speed was far inferior. There was no way they could escape. Chapter 548. Jing Qiu Run. Dongbu Shuiying swung his spear and met the beast head-on. At the same time, he used his luminous sun force to execute his secret skill, Prison, to restrict the beast. Run! If we stay here, we'll both die here. It doesn't matter if our 2 clones die, but there's no meaning in dying like this. I specialize in close combat and domain-related secret skills. I can still hold it back for a while. But you won't be able to hold it back. Once it gets close to you, you will die. Quick! Run! If you run, I can think of a way to escape as well. Maybe I can survive. Jing Qiu had memories from her previous life after all. She was a decisive person. Although it was hard for her husband to block the enemy, she consoled herself. Both her and her husband were only clones here. It didn't matter if they died, as long as their deaths had some value. South Jing Qiu transformed into a ray of light and escaped. Shui Ying and the black-armored many-legged beast were engaged in a frenzied battle. Boom boom boom. Dongbu Shuiying's body slammed against the walls of the mountain. He relied on his domain-related secret skill to slow down the enemy's movements. At the same time, he relied on his spear arts to hold on. Although the beast was extremely strong, his luminous sun force was also his forte. With his new spear art life, he was able to hold it back for a while. Even though the combat power of the black-armored many-legged beast is above mine, it's not to the point where I can't even retaliate. What he didn't know was that these black-armored beasts had sent the weaker ones over on purpose. They wanted to waste more time to kill them off one by one. However, I won't be able to hold on for too long. I can't fight against them head-on. Dongbu Shuiying executed his spear arts while escaping at high speed. Xiao! A ray of light escaped at high speed. Trying to escape? The beast roared as it chased after him. Its speed was much faster than Dongbu Shuiying. It was able to catch up to him time and time again. It was just that the direction Shuiying fled in was the same direction he came from. Because his wife was heading in the direction of the true god weapon, if he ran in the direction of his wife would be dragged in as well. Even if he really had to die, he had to try his best to protect his wife. Jing Qiu transformed into a beam of light as she flew. Her eyes flashed with a hint of dissatisfaction towards herself, because the main reason why she came to Dongbu Shuiying this time was for her. Snow Eagle. Jing Qiu looked behind her, but no one was chasing after her. Dongbu Shuiying and the black-armored many-legged beast were flying at high speed as they fought. Pooh! Shuiying was struck by a hoof claw and was sent flying backwards. Even though he used his spear to block the attack, he still spat out a mouthful of blood. He continued to flee, the huge wound on his chest rapidly healing. These were only some of the injuries caused by the shockwaves of the battle. If he had been struck head-on with his current body, he would most likely have died immediately. As Dongbu Shuiying battled, he gained a deeper understanding of his secret skill, life. His spear arts were executed according to his will, as though everything in the world was blossoming with a different kind of beauty. His moves were perfected and he was actually able to hold on until now. However, if he defended for too long, he would definitely lose. If this continued, Dongbu Shuiying understood that he might lose his life. Faster, faster, it's just in front. Dongbu Shuiying's heart was filled with anticipation. The black-armored many-legged beast which was chasing behind him gradually slowed down. In fact, it was no longer intentionally chasing after him. It was slightly puzzled. Blazing blood door? That's right. Dongbu Shuiying continued to flee along the path he came from. By now, he was already very close to the blazing blood door. Interesting, interesting. The black-armored many-legged beast's eyes were filled with anticipation. Xiao! Dongbu Shuiying saw a huge space within the mountain in front of him. There was a huge blood-colored plate on the ground, which was about 1,000,000 kilometers wide. There were pictures of swords and sabers on the plate, and it was emitting a terrifying killing intent and a bloody aura. There were also a few blood-armored warriors who had already woken up and were chatting with each other. These blood-armored warriors all turned their heads to look at Dongbu Shuiying, who was flying towards the space within the mountain. He still dares to come? He's actually here again? Over 100 blood-armored warriors looked at this scene in shock. The black-armored many-legged beast which was originally chasing after Dongbu Shuiying had stopped, and was observing everything from the entrance of the mountain. South Dongbu Shuiying directly landed on the blood-colored plate. Standing on the blood-colored plate, Dongbu Shuiying looked at the hundreds of blood-armored warriors around him. The stares from these warriors made him feel somewhat uncomfortable. However, this time the warriors seemed to be restraining themselves a little. Otherwise, Dongbu Shuiying would not be able to control the power within his body. And you want to challenge the blazing blood door? Among the hundreds of blood-armored warriors, a tall and skinny lady spoke. Her voice was somewhat feminine. Challenge the blazing blood door? Dongbo Shuang saw that the blood-armored warriors did not make a move immediately, and looked at the black-armored many-legged beast which had yet to come over. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. He just followed closely behind. Among the blood-armored warriors, a skinny warrior flew out and landed on the blazing blood door. He stared at Dongbo Shuang with killing intent. One opponent. Dongbo Shuang thought to himself. Furthermore, the other blood-armored warriors are just watching from the side. Even the black-armored many-legged beast did not chase after me. My guess is right. The reason why he followed the path back to the blazing blood door was because he had a hunch. Previously, when they passed by the blazing blood door, it was 4 blood-armored warriors who attacked. After all, there were over 100 of them around. Why were there only 4 of them? Furthermore, there were 4 of them in their group. What a coincidence! Secondly, after Monarch Fuqiong was killed, the blood-armored warrior who was holding the blade did not continue to attack. It was a 3 against 3. Otherwise, Emperor Armadillo Jade would not have been able to escape with the speed of the blade-wielding warrior. At first it was a 4 against 4, then a 3 against 3. This gave Dongbo Shuang some guesses. Moreover, the huge blood-colored plate was obviously not an ordinary item. This made Dongbo Shuang very curious. If I were to return alone, I'm afraid it would be a 1 against 1 battle, right? Dongbo Shuang guessed. Among the 4 opponents previously, the blade-wielding warrior, the tall and big warrior with golden fists, and the enchanting female warrior were obviously stronger. As for the black-armored many-legged beast, he did not reveal any powerful moves. Dongbo Shuang thought to himself, the 4 warriors they sent out, were they sent based on the strength of our group? Our group consists of 3 stage 4 world gods and 1 stage 3 world god. Hence, the number of blood-armored warriors they sent out is 3 strong and 1 weak. Dongbo Shuang was an expert after all. His thinking speed was extremely fast. Although he was in a sorry state the previous time, he was able to make some guesses based on his observations. Hence, he was willing to take a gamble and verify it. This way, his death would be more meaningful. Furthermore, he would be able to understand more about the blazing blood gate. Furthermore, what if he made the right bet? He might not even have to die. Seems like I made the right bet. Dongbo Shuang looked at the skinny warrior descending from the huge blood-colored plate. There was only 1 of him, and he did not seem to be as threatening. You said that I'm challenging the blazing blood gate? Dongbo Shuang looked at the tall and skinny lady who spoke earlier and asked with a smile, May I know what the rules are for challenging the blazing blood gate? The tall and skinny lady's eyes shone with a silver light. She looked at Dongbo Shuang with interest and smiled. It seems like you're not too clear about the rules, yet you dare to stand on top of the blazing blood gate. How courageous! It's just a gamble with my life. Dongbo Shuang replied. Some of the warriors in blood-red armor were discussing in low voices, some were smiling, and some were shaking their heads while sneering. I wonder if you could tell me what the rules are for challenging the blazing blood gate. That way I can die knowing. Dongbo Shuang smiled. Chapter 549. The tall, skinny lady nodded. The blazing blood door was built by my master for outsiders. Many of those who visit my island are not qualified to meet my master. You want to ask for treasures? My master asked them to challenge the blazing blood door. The blazing blood door is filled with danger, and the more danger one passes, the more benefits one will get. Dongbo Shuang understood. It was not hard to imagine that the master of the island had a very high status a long time ago, and there must have been a lot of visitors. That master didn't even bother to greet them, and just set up the blazing blood door. But not everyone is qualified to open the blazing blood door. The tall, skinny lady said, so before opening the blazing blood door, you have to go through a screening test, and filter out a large number of ordinary cultivators. Screening test? Dongbo Shuang was confused. Yes, there is an opponent in front of you. Only by defeating him will you pass the screening test, and you will be qualified to enter the blazing blood door. The tall, skinny lady pointed at the skinny warrior who was already standing on the blood-colored disc. Make him surrender, or blast him out of the blazing blood door. and you will defeat him. Let's begin. The tall, skinny lady said calmly. Chao Wu, don't be careless and lose. A burly warrior with golden eyes beside him shouted. Little brother Chao Wu, you have to win some face for us and kill this outsider. The seductive lady who was an expert in witchcraft poison said while covering her mouth. Little brother Chao Wu, finish him, finish him. We believe in you. The warriors in blood-colored armor shouted. After waking up from their long slumber, they were greeted with a screening test for the blazing blood door, and it was a joy that they had not experienced for a long time. These old guys were too lonely, and they naturally stood on the side of their companions, looking forward to the scene of Dongbo Shuiying's death. Boom! A faint red light shot out from the blood-colored disc, and the red light enveloped the area above it. Dongbo Shuiying and the skinny warrior were both in the area. Make him surrender or blast him out of the red light and I will win, right? Dongbo Shuiying said. This kid is quite confident. Chao Wu, kill him. At this moment, a group of black-armored monsters appeared at the entrance of the mountain. These black-armored monsters were either in human form, beast form or bird form. All of them were watching the battle with great interest. The black-armored monsters and the crimson-armored warriors were even chatting with each other. They seemed to be quite familiar with each other. My name is Chao Wu. On the round plate, the skinny armored warrior stared at Dongbo Shuiying. His voice was piercing to the ears. I've seen your previous battle. You have a supreme art. But it's a pity that I'm your nemesis. Die. As he spoke, the skinny armored warrior suddenly manifested 6 arms, each of which was holding a curved blade. Hua! A distorted silver trail flashed in midair, and the skinny armored warrior had already arrived beside Dongbo Shuiying. At this moment, Dongbo Shuiying was still comfortably feeling the area. This was because ever since the red light appeared, Dongbo Shuiying felt that the suppression from the Lake Heart Island historical remnant had completely disappeared. He could now use his world deity territory, and he could also use his world energy. Obviously, as a fair test, the Lake Heart Island historical remnant would not suppress Dongbo Shuiying at all. So fast, Dongbo Shuiying took a step forward, and his figure disappeared into thin air. When he reappeared, he was already hundreds of thousands of miles away, and the skinny armored warrior's blade light missed its target. Seal! Seeing this, the skinny armored warrior furrowed his brows and bellowed. Dongbo Shuiying immediately felt that the surrounding space had been sealed. With a slight smile, he activated his world energy and started to condense it. Numerous starry blue-robed Dongbo Shuiying appeared, and a total of 9 Dongbo Shuiying appeared at the same time. Each of them wielded a black spear and attacked the skinny armored warrior, displaying a myriad of spear techniques. At the same time, a dazzling luminous sun force appeared, traversing in all directions, instantly entangling with the skinny armored warrior. Kill! A cold light flashed in the eyes of the skinny armored warrior. Hong! His figure became blurry, and the surrounding time and space started to distort. The blurry figure instantly closed in on one of the world bodies of Dongbo Shuiying. The 6 arms of the skinny armored warrior brandished blade light, and the blade light turned into a silver trail. Although one of the world bodies had a hard time defending against it, it was still struck by the blade light, and the body was directly split into pieces. Although the other 8 world bodies were attacking the skinny armored warrior, the defense of the world bodies could be said to be invincible. The spear techniques of the world bodies could not injure him at all, and could only affect his movement techniques. What a fast movement technique and what a ruthless blade technique. No wonder he said that he can restrain me. Dongbo Shuiying's true body stood in the distance, watching this scene and was inwardly shocked. With such blade techniques and 6 arms, it will be troublesome for me to deal with him. One of the world bodies dissipated, and another one condensed. The 9 world bodies attacked the skinny armored warrior fearlessly. The skinny armored warrior, Chao Wu, was also inwardly frustrated. Previously, when Dongbo Shuiying's team of 4 was ambushed, Dongbo Shuiying's team had not decided to challenge the blazing blood door. Dongbo Shuiying's team was suppressed, and they were unable to display their world deity domain, much less their world bodies. The moment Chao Wu acted, he discovered that Dongbo Shuiying had released 9 world bodies, and he instantly felt a headache. I was too careless. It has been too long since I last fought, and I didn't have the chance to observe him properly the last time. Chao Wu thought, however, I still have to win this battle. Hong! Chao Wu erupted. His figure turned blurry once again, and the surrounding space-time distorted. His speed had reached a terrifying level, and he forcefully pierced through it. Although there were 9 world bodies surrounding him, he dodged as much as he could, and if he couldn't, he would use his weapon to block. Some of the attacks that didn't affect his speed too much, he would use his body to block. Dongbo Shuiying's weapon couldn't hurt him at all. At this moment, he only had one goal: Dongbo Shuiying's true body. Want to kill me? The world is me and I am the world. Within this world I am everywhere. Dongbo Shuiying smiled, and in an instant, he was already 600,000 kilometers away. No matter how fast Chao Wu's shuttling speed was, he couldn't do anything against Dongbo Shuiying's instantaneous disappearance. Among the spectating blood-armored warriors, that enchanting woman laughed, "Little doll, don't keep hiding. You have to make Chao Wu admit defeat, or blast him out of the blazing blood door to win. If you keep hiding, it won't be considered a win." Right, hiding isn't considered a win. If you can't win, you will still die in the end. The spectators were still very relaxed. Dongbo Shuiying heard the voices around him, but he didn't care at all. He was still walking leisurely, displaying his domain-type secret technique, prison, to bind his opponent, and let the 9 world bodies surround him. Even the scarlet cloud spear in Dongbo Shuiying's hand had yet to move, and he just watched silently, observing his opponent's blade technique. Only by knowing oneself and knowing one's enemy could one have a higher chance of winning. The one called Chao Wu was furious and wanted to attack again and again, but he couldn't even get close to him, and was even forced to fight with the world bodies. That's it. Dongbo Shuiying watched for a full time, and his original body in the distant Xia people's world, Crimson Rock Mountain, was also constantly comprehending and calculating under the time acceleration of 100 times. Finally, he had a plan in mind. Who? The scarlet cloud spear in his hand suddenly drew a strange arc, and instantly pierced forward. Chapter 550. When Dongbo Shuiying struck with his spear, the other 9 world bodies also struck with their spears. The first spear was ordinary, but its power began to accumulate. That skinny armored warrior was a little excited because Dongbo Shuiying's real body had finally struck with his spear. If he had to keep hiding like this, he would also feel aggrieved. The second spear, the surrounding space began to distort. This spear began to alert the skinny armored warrior, Chao Wu. Something was wrong. The third spear. Boom! 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 It was as if 10 dazzling sun stars had appeared in front of him. Chao Wu's eyes could no longer see. He could only rely on the laws of profound mysteries to sense the surroundings and lock onto the 10 spears. At the same time, he felt a strong sense of threat. This was the most overbearing and ruthless move that Dongbo Shuiying had ever made. The group of blood-armored warriors who were watching from the side were a little surprised. This was the secret skill destruction that he had learned from the ancient array of the Lake Heart Island. After accumulating power for 2 spears, the power of the third spear was indeed very strong. The scarlet cloud spear slashed over. The so-called secret skill destruction was a spear art. It was an application of the laws of profound mysteries. It did not have a fixed style and could be used to stab, chop, sweep, or drill. As for the other 9 world bodies, they used their secret skill, destruction, to attack Chao Wu from all directions, either stabbing or sweeping. Not good. Chao Wu's expression changed. When the third spear burst out, the dagger would be revealed. He knew that it was too late now. He tried his best to use his body and saber art to block the attack. Gu, Peng, Chi. In an instant, the spears all came over. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Dongbo Shuiying had already seen through Chao Wu's saber art. Bang! The last one was the scarlet cloud spear. The spear shaft was surrounded by absolute darkness, surrounded by a crazy burst of power, surging and whipping the body of Chao Wu, who was already unstable after being attacked by the 9 spears. He could not help but be whipped into a stream of light and flew backward, although he tried his best to stop. But this most violent move had perfectly lashed onto his body. The power was too strong. He was sent flying out of the range of the red light, and he even slammed into the wall of the mountain, shattering countless layers of ice before he could regain his balance. He looked at Dongbua Shuiying, who was standing on the blood-red disc, with an ugly expression on his face. Although he was unharmed, he knew very well that he had lost. Being blasted out of the range of the blazing blood door meant defeat. Not a bad spear technique. This spear technique has already surpassed the realm of a universe deity in the third heaven. In terms of the usage of rules and mysteries, it already has the taste of a universe deity in the fourth heaven. The tall and skinny lady smiled and complimented. It's a very powerful spear. Little brother Chao Wu's loss was not undeserved, the enchanting woman also said. For a stage 3 world deity to have such strength, he is indeed qualified to open the blazing blood door. The tall and thin woman continued, Foreign cultivator, you've already passed the screening test and can be considered a guest of my Lake Heart Island. This is your gift for passing the test. After saying that, the tall and thin woman flipped her hand and took out a blood-colored talisman. There was only one strange character on the blood-colored talisman. Although he had never seen such a character before, Dongbua Shuiying instantly understood it. Ink. Dongbua Shuiying was confused. The blood-colored talisman had already flown to Dongbua Shuiying's side. What's the use of this talisman? Dongbua Shuiying asked. It's somewhat useful, I guess. The tall and thin woman said indifferently. You've only passed the screening test, so the reward won't be too high. The more dangers you're able to overcome after opening the blazing blood door, the more treasures you'll get. The skinny Chao Wu by the side humped softly. To you, becoming a guest of my Lake Heart Island is the biggest reward for you. Becoming a guest means that you're no longer an invader, and you won't be attacked by us. You can walk freely in the ordinary area. Only the restricted areas of my Lake Heart Island prohibit you from trespassing. Walk freely in the ordinary area? Dongbua Shuiying was overjoyed. There was actually such a benefit to being a guest. That's great. This was indeed a very useful reward. To him, the dangers that lurked everywhere were the biggest headache he had. Hong long long. All of a sudden, the blood-colored disc beneath Dongbua Shuiying's feet began to split apart, revealing a terrifying passageway. Dongbua Shuiying felt a bone-deep fear. He hurriedly flew up high and looked down. There was a faint suction force from below, attracting Dongbua Shuiying. After the blood-colored disc split apart, the passageway revealed was a distorted void. However, within this distorted void, there were 18 blood-colored tattoos. Each of these tattoos seemed to contain countless living beings howling. Just by looking at it, Dongbua Shuiying couldn't help but feel fear from the bottom of his heart. He found it hard to breathe, and felt as though he was about to kneel down. Even when he was facing his master, the God Emperor, he had never felt such fear. However, this passageway caused Dongbua Shuiying to feel such fear. Stop. Dongbua Shuiying hurriedly said. I give up. Give up? The tall and skinny woman was startled. You're not going to attempt the blazing blood door? Dongbua Shuiying hurriedly said. The blazing blood door is filled with danger. It shouldn't be something that must be entered, right? I can give up, right? Yes. The tall and skinny woman nodded. With a wave of her hand, the blood-colored disc slowly closed up, sealing the terrifying passageway. You're really smart. With your current strength you might die at any moment. The tall and skinny woman said. However, when you're stronger you can still attempt it again. Definitely. Dongbua Shuiying replied. Although he said so, he didn't dare to be careless. This was a place that the master of Lake Heart Island had specially built to deal with outsiders. Just for the sake of the island's reputation, it would be extremely dangerous inside. It was already extremely difficult for him to pass the screening. How could he still go in and seek death? It would be better to wait until he was stronger. Now that I'm considered a guest of Lake Heart Island, I won't be attacked in the ordinary areas? Dongbua Shuiying asked. Yes. The tall and skinny woman nodded. However, you're not allowed to barge into the restricted areas. Where's the restricted area? Dongbua Shuiying asked. Don't worry. If you barge in unintentionally, you'll be expelled. If you resist, you'll be killed. The tall and skinny woman said. Understood. Dongbua Shuiying smiled. Everyone, I'll be taking my leave first. Just as he was about to turn and leave, Dongbu Shuang suddenly stopped. Looking at the skinny armored warrior in the distance, he asked, "Brother Chao Wu?" The skinny armored warrior Chao Wu was startled. Looking at Dongbu Shuang, he frowned and asked, "What's the matter? You're a stage 3 world deity?" Dongbu Shuang asked. "I guess so." Chao Wu frowned and replied. Dongbu Shuang nodded lightly. When he fought with Chao Wu, he realized that although Chao Wu's blade technique was very strong, he was only a stage 3 world deity. It was only because of his invincible defense, great strength, and extremely fast speed that he was able to fight on par with him. These armored warriors, be it the black armored monsters or the blood armored warriors, all of them have invincible defense. Dongbu Shuang thought to himself, "I guess it's the Lake Heart Island's doing." At the same time he flew far away. As for the black armored monsters that were originally blocking the entrance of the mountain, they left one by one. As soon as they came into contact with the mountain walls, they would disappear. "You even became a guest of my Lake Heart Island?" The many-legged black armored beast that was originally chasing after Dongbu Shuang muttered. After that, he too went into the mountain wall and disappeared. Dongbu Shuang looked at the black armored monsters leaving. He couldn't help but feel better. It was true. These fellows did not attack him anymore. So, Dongbu Shuang rushed towards the direction of his wife Jingqiu. "Jingqiu, tell me, where are you? Don't run around. I'm coming." Dongbu Shuang immediately sent a message. At the same time he was filled with excitement and confidence. This was the first time he had the confidence to bring his wife away safely. He even had the confidence to save his father-in-law. Chapter 551. In reality, Dongbu Shuang had only experienced a single battle at the Blazing Blood Door. Snow Eagle. Jingqiu was extremely excited. She thought that she was the only survivor of the team. "I'm here. Where are you?" Dongbu Shuang transmitted. "I just obtained the True God weapon." Jingqiu transmitted. "All right. Wait for me there. I'll be there soon." Dongbu Shuang transmitted. "When I parted ways with you earlier, I made a bet and gained something. Now that I'm in the normal areas of the Lake Heart Island, I won't be attacked." So, Dongbu Shuang advanced at his fastest speed. His journey was smooth, and no black armored monsters attacked him. He was worried that his wife Jingqiu would be attacked. Fortunately, after a while, Dongbu Shuang finally saw the cold silver-haired lady in the mask. He heaved a sigh of relief. "Snow Eagle!" Jingqiu shouted. Her voice was filled with happiness. "Jingqiu, I'll send you outside," Dongbu Shuang said. "Find a place to stay at the edge of the Lake Heart Island." "Oh." Jingqiu was puzzled. Dongbu Shuang smiled. He explained everything in detail, including the situation at the Blazing Blood Door, and the benefits he gained from passing the trial. After Jingqiu heard it, she revealed a look of joy. "Not an intruder, but a guest of the Lake Heart Island. It'll be much safer there." "Yes." Dongbu Shuang nodded. "Originally, I wasn't confident that I could save your father, but now I'm confident. No matter what, it's all because of the True God weapon. The True God weapon is too precious. We can't lose it. I'll send you outside the Lake Heart Island. You wait there. After that, I'll go receive you alone." Jingqiu thought for a while and nodded in agreement. Logically, she understood that this was the best option. She wouldn't be of any help if she followed. "Let's go then." Dongbu Shuang waved his hand and kept his wife into his inner world. The inner world of a world deity was extremely huge. It had the ability to receive souls, reconstruct the fleshly body, and many other functions. Even after becoming a powerful existence, once the inner world was completed, it could give birth to life on its own, allowing countless lives to reproduce and live. Whoosh! With that, Dongbu Shuang began his journey back. For safety's sake, he purposely returned along the original path. After all, this path was even more remote. The Nanyang Palace head, withered tree old mother, and other existences would not seal off and investigate such a remote place. Phew! He rushed out of the cave he had entered from. It was covered in frost outside. In the distance there was a boundless layer of water. Dongbu Shuang waved his hand, and Jing Qiu appeared beside him. We came out so easily. Jing Qiu looked around and revealed a look of joy. I was still worried about the dangers on the way back. Previously, we met with Monarch Armadillo Jade and the others here, but they've already... Dongbu Shuang shook his head lightly. Fortunately, we're confident that we can leave safely. When the time comes, we can bring back their blood-refined deity weapons and other treasures. That way, their losses will be minimized. Oh right, Jing Qiu, find a place to live in seclusion. Jing Qiu nodded. Passing through the layer of water would take too long, and it would be too dangerous for Jing Qiu to do it alone. Naturally, she would find a safe place at the periphery of the island. Soon, in the depths of a tall mountain, Jing Qiu waved her hand and used her world deity energy to condense an ice house. Her surroundings were also isolated from all probing of laws. The entire Lake Heart Island is incomparably huge. There are only so many powerful existences and stage 4 world deities here. It's impossible for anyone to pass through here. Even if they do, they won't be able to enter the boundary deity domain. Furthermore, I'm isolated from all probing of laws, so they won't be able to discover me. Alright. Dongbu Shuang waved his hand. He placed the treasures left behind by Monarch Armadillo Jade and the Calamity Stone Essence with his wife. As for the Scarlet Cloud Spear, the ink character token, and the other items, he carried them with him. The Scarlet Cloud Spear was of great help to his strength, and the ink character token was the reward for passing the selection test. Who knows, it might still be useful on the Lake Heart Island. Then I'll head over first. Dongbu Shuang said. Hurry up and contact your father. Tell him to rendezvous with me. Jing Qiu was somewhat worried. You should be careful. Nanyang Palace Head, Withered Tree Old Mother, and the others are definitely using karma to track my father. My father is also using karma to maintain a distance from them. If you were to rendezvous with my father, the moment you return, I'm afraid you'll be in danger. It's fine. In any case, all the important treasures have been left here. Dongbu Shuang smiled. Nanyang Palace Head and the others were either powerful existences or stage 4 world deities who were comparable to powerful existences. Monarch Mo Shui was also comparable to powerful existences. All of them were proficient in karma. By following karma, they could determine each other's approximate location. This was also the reason why it was hard for Nanyang Palace Head and the rest to catch Monarch Mo Shui. Because Monarch Mo Shui knew that they were approaching, he forcefully drilled inside. In addition, the directions of the forks in the cavern were not fixed. He could clearly confirm that Monarch Mo Shui was in a certain direction, but following the cavern passageway, he was constantly deviating from the direction. I shall make a move first. Dongbu Shuang laughed as he sped away. Jing Qiu watched from afar, her silver hair fluttering in the wind. Her heart was filled with anticipation. She hoped that this time, her husband could successfully bring her father out. The black-robed, white-haired, white-bearded old man was casually sitting on a protruding ice boulder. Through karma senses, he could sense that there were many karmic threads in the void that connected to different directions. One of the thicker karmic threads was extending to a region 1 billion kilometers away. However, that region was a chaotic mess and he could not sense it carefully. Monarch Mo Shui was very clear. The reason why it was a piece of primal chaos was because that region isolated all law probing. Want to chase me? I have cultivated for many years, and am proficient in karma techniques. The layout of the Lake Heart Island is also very mysterious. Want to chase me? Monarch Mo Shui sneered, then looked around. Surrounding him was an empty mountainside, and there were a total of 8 caves leading to different directions. Monarch Mo Shui revealed a smile. I, Mo Shui, have never been so deep into the Lake Heart Island. In the information he obtained, there was not a single record. Because it was too deep. This kind of place, most likely only those at the level of the 3 ancestors, or even true god rulers, dared to enter. Monarch Mo Shui was also fleeing for his life, so he did not care, madly drilling. Father. Jing Qiu's transmission. Monarch Mo Shui immediately revealed a look of joy. He was most happy that his eldest daughter had actually succeeded in reincarnating, awakening her memories, and even becoming a stage 4 world deity. This made Monarch Mo Shui incomparably gratified. Even if he died, he would have no regrets. What made him even more happy was that his daughter in her previous life simply did not fancy men. After reincarnating before she had even become a god, she had already married a young fellow from the material realm, the mortal world. Moreover, this young fellow had extremely high talent, and was directly taken in as a personal disciple by Bloodblade. He was happy, and felt that even if he died, there was nothing to worry about. Moreover, Monarch Mo Shui had really lived for far too long, and naturally had long seen through it. Therefore, at the last moment, he entered the Lake Heart Island ruins to fight for it. For a true god weapon, even if he had to fall out with Nanyang Palace head, he would not hesitate. As long as he could give this true god weapon to his daughter, that would be too perfect. With a true god weapon, his daughter's hopes of becoming a powerful existence would greatly increase. Moreover, she still had a very powerful husband, and he believed that in the future, she would definitely surpass him, this father, and truly transcend, becoming a powerful existence. Good daughter, what's the matter? Monarch Mo Shui was in a relaxed mood as he chatted with his daughter. Father, I have already obtained the true god weapon, and am currently safely waiting outside the Lake Heart Island, Jing Qiu transmitted. Monarch Mo Shui was immediately surprised and happy. She actually succeeded? Snow Eagle is currently inside the Lake Heart Island, and wants to receive you, father. Tell me the approximate geographical location, so that I can tell Snow Eagle. Jing Qiu said. He's coming to receive me? Monarch Mo Shui frowned, and immediately transmitted, good daughter, don't waste your energy. I am currently in the extreme depths of the Lake Heart Island, and it is too dangerous for Dongbu Shuiying. You two dolls should stop tormenting yourself, and quickly leave with your husband. Chapter 552. Father, since Snow Eagle and I came, we didn't care about the danger. Furthermore, the two of us are just clones, so you don't have to worry about us. Jing Qiu transmitted. Furthermore, we've also discovered a place called the Blazing Blood Gate. Jing Qiu explained everything in detail. This was also permitted by Dongbu Shuiying. There was no need to hide it from his father-in-law. If I pass the screening, I won't be attacked in the normal areas. If I accidentally trespass into the restricted areas, I'll just be chased away? Only resisting will one be killed? Monarch Mo Shui was startled, and immediately understood how important this guest's identity was. Alright. Monarch Mo Shui's heart also had a desire to live. With the help of her son-in-law, she might really be able to escape and reincarnate. Daughter, I'm too deep into the island. I can only use karma to determine my approximate location. Moreover, when I was fleeing, I even entered some extremely dangerous places and narrowly escaped death to reach here. It's impossible for Shuiying to follow the same route as me. Monarch Mo Shui transmitted. The main reason was that Nanyang Palace head and the others were chasing too ruthlessly at the start. Monarch Mo Shui would rush to wherever the danger was. Nanyang Palace head and the others did not dare to gamble with their lives. Father, tell me the location first. Jing Qiu transmitted. Who? Traversing through the depths of the Lake Heart Island, Dongbu Shuiying was extremely relaxed. He did not encounter any ambushes at all. This feeling is truly exhilarating. Dongbu Shuiying smiled. If not for Monarch Armadillo Jade, he and Jing Qiu would not have been able to reach the place where the true god weapon was hidden. That was already a relatively safe region that Monarch Mo Shui had deliberately placed. Dongbu Shuiying received a map from his wife. So deep. Dongbu Shuiying frowned. The straight line distance between Monarch Mo Shui and the periphery of Lake Heart Island exceeded 200 billion li. This was purely a straight line distance, and the layout of the island in the center of the lake was mysterious, so in reality, one would have to take a long detour. Take your time. Because he was very safe, Dongbu Shuiying could use the simplest method, which was to continuously approach Monarch Mo Shui's position. If one path couldn't be taken, he would change to another. Time flew by. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. This time Dongbu Shuiying had ventured more than 100 times deeper than when he first came in, but there was not a single battle. This is really strange. Dongbu Shuiying looked ahead. At the end of the tunnel was a spatial whirlpool. Dongbu Shuiying did not have the confidence to enter recklessly. Nobody knew where he would be teleported to if he entered. Clearly, this was some kind of spatial passageway, and it definitely led somewhere. Turn around. Dongbu Shuiying did not hesitate to turn around and head back, following a fork in the road that he had discovered earlier. The interior of the island was simply too vast. The stage 4 world deities and powerful existences that came from the deity world and dark abyss were too rare, so Dongbu Shuiying had yet to meet a single one. However, after passing through so many places, he had also recorded down a very detailed map. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Even though Dongbu Shuiying often took detours because he had always been flying at his fastest speed, he would avoid some of the dangerous and unique places. Therefore, he had always been traveling in the ordinary regions, and did not meet with any trouble. In this month, the distance between him and Monarch Mo Shui had shrunk to 50 billion miles. Within the pitch-black passageway, Dongbu Shuiying was flying at high speed. Even though the passageway was covered in a thick layer of ice, one could see the black material deep within the ice. Peng! Dongbu Shuiying waved his hand, and a white stream of light shot out, shattering a large piece of the ice layer, revealing the gloomy black walls. The black walls had simple and unadorned veined patterns, yet they had a strange charm to them. The deeper I go into the island, the more I can see some buildings, Dongbu Shuiying thought. Currently, these buildings were all sealed in ice. What is that? Dongbu Shuiying suddenly stopped, turning his head to look at the ice layer behind him. Within that thick layer of ice, a figure was faintly discernible, sitting cross-legged there. No armor. Sitting cross-legged? Dongbu Shuiying stood in midair, looking through the ice layer carefully. The ice layer was very thick, and there was a man wearing a gray robe sitting cross-legged, yet he was completely frozen. I have been here for more than a month, and can be considered to have entered the depths of the island, and have seen many things. But those ice sculptures are all wearing armor. Dongbu Shuiying thought, this is the first one without armor. Dongbu Shuiying had an urge to study it. Who cares? Even if this gray-robed man is really a powerful character within the Lake Heart Island, I have unintentionally disturbed him. I didn't mean to disturb him. I'm a guest, so he probably won't kill me. Dongbu Shuiying made up his mind, and with a wave of his hand, countless white radiance shot out from his fingertips, directly smashing through the ice layer. Hua hua hua! Large pieces of ice layer crumbled. The 100-meter thick ice layer was completely torn apart, and the luminous sun force did not injure the gray-robed man in the slightest. Instead, the ice layer around him was completely shattered, revealing the appearance of the gray-robed man. He sat cross-legged, and did not emit any aura. Dead? Dongbu Shuiying sensed it, and was immediately certain. Even his true deity heart is gone. Dongbu Shuiying controlled a strand of luminous sun force to seep into the corpse of the gray-robed man. It was indeed empty, but this corpse caused Dongbu Shuiying's expression to change. Because when the luminous sun force seeped into the corpse through his nostrils, he discovered that this corpse's muscles, bones, and even organs were terrifyingly strong. This is definitely a powerful existence, and a powerful existence that had cultivated his body to an extremely high realm. Dongbu Shuiying thought. But who is he? Dongbu Shuiying observed carefully. From the aura of his body, he should be a powerful existence from the deity world, and not the dark abyss. I should know all the powerful existences in the history of the deity world, including those who have died. But I don't know him. Dongbu Shuiying frowned as he observed this gray-robed man in front of him. An unfamiliar powerful existence, one that had never been recorded in the history of the deity world. However, the historical records of the deity world aren't safe. For example, the owner of the Lake Heart Island wasn't recorded either. Dongbu Shuiying guessed. Dongbu Shuiying's gaze landed on the wrist of the gray-robed man. There was a scarlet-red wristband on his wrist. With a wave of his hand, the scarlet-red wristband flew towards him. This was the only treasure on the gray-robed man's corpse other than his robes. He, Dongbu Shuiying, would not go as far as to strip the clothes of a dead cultivator, even if the clothes were of the peak-grade world deity rank. The scarlet-red wristband was a storage treasure, and it was a unique world deity weapon that could be used in battle. Interesting. Even though it is a world deity weapon, it seems to be very powerful. Dongbu Shuiying's expression changed. When he refined the scarlet-red wristband, he immediately discovered the ancient array within the wristband. The vast array was dark and unfathomable, causing Dongbo Shuiying's heart to palpitate. Within the array there was a fixed space-time. This is a weapon that can seal the enemy into its space-time. As long as this weapon is activated, the enemy will be sucked into this space-time. The profound mysteries within this weapon, who forged it? I feel that even the Eden treasure Crimson Rock Mountain is inferior to it. Dongbo Shuiying frowned. Moreover, I can't even identify the corpse of this gray-robed man. Forget it. Since he couldn't figure it out, he could only put it aside for now. No matter what, this mysterious gray-robed man had been dead for an unknown period of time. Moreover, he was buried deep within the Lake Heart Island. There are still some items within. Perhaps I can find out his identity from these items. Dongbo Shuiying sent his consciousness into the wristband. The space-time within the wristband was separated into close to 100 layers. One of the layers was used to store items. Chapter 553. Dongbo Shuiying took out 4 items from the wristband. They were the more unique items in the wristband. The others were common items like god crystals. The 4 items were an axe, a sharp shard, a long black whip and a golden book. The axe and the long whip are both world deity grade weapons. Moreover, their forging techniques are very similar. Dongbo Shuiying inspected them and discovered that the divine imprints on the axe and the long whip were ancient and unique. Before coming to Lake Heart Island, he had never seen such a style. Strictly speaking, they were similar to the scarlet wristband as they both had the charm of time and space. The axe, the long whip and the scarlet wristband. The person who forged them must be very proficient in time and space. In the entire deity world and abyss, the person who is most proficient in time and space would be the temporal island lord. Dongbo Shuiying thought about it carefully. However, he was still unable to guess the identity of the corpse of the gray-robed man. It was as though he was a powerful existence that appeared out of nowhere. He casually picked up a sharp shard and touched it. The shard was dark red in color, and there were ancient patterns on it. It emitted a vast and tranquil aura, causing Dongbo Shuiying to feel calm. It's not an ordinary item. However, I can't tell its usage. Moreover, it's only a shard. Could it be a shard of a true god weapon? Dongbo Shuiying guessed. He then placed the shard aside and looked at the last item. Dongbo Shuiying took the thick golden book and flipped through it. There were many ancient words written on it. Hong. A huge amount of information surged into his mind. Paragon dust cloud. The scarlet wristband, axe and long whip are weapons that I forged myself. However, due to the limited materials, they are only world deity weapons. As for the shard, I obtained it by chance. Until now, I have yet to discover its usage. These are my gifts to the future one. I, Dust Cloud, have been cultivating bitterly for a long time. I do not have many treasures. Please forgive me. The reason why I'm giving these to you is because I have a request. If the future one is able to meet Paragon Qingyuan in the future, please give this book to him. If you can't meet him, then forget it. Qingyuan, I've done what you asked of me. It's a pity that I still underestimated the dangers of the Lake Heart Island. I didn't have the chance to meet you again. What a pity. In just a few sentences, what followed were extremely complicated array diagrams. There were a total of 325 array diagrams, and each one of them was extremely profound. Dongbo Shuiying took the book in his hand and remained silent. He could feel the regret in the message left by the dead man. It was left before he died. Lord Dust Cloud? Honorable Qingyuan? Could it be a venerable? Dongbo Shuiying pondered. When he had been with Monarch Armadillo Jade and the others, he had learned that major powers were also referred to as true gods, and that they could be roughly divided into 3 levels. Ordinary true gods, true god paragons, and true god rulers. His master, the temporal island lord, and the others were all dominator rank existences. There aren't many paragons in the entire deity world and abyss, but why haven't I heard of the 2 of them? Dongbo Shuiying thought to himself. And could it be that this Paragon Dust Cloud didn't have a communication technique? Why did he leave a message on the book before he died? Most communication techniques were through communication. One could even use karma to communicate across countless worlds. Leaving a message on a book like this was a very unique thing. After studying it for a moment, he kept it. Dongbo Shuang looked at the corpse of the gray-robed man who was sitting cross-legged in front of him with a serene expression. He immediately stretched out his hand, and the power of the heavens and the earth rapidly condensed into soil and rocks. The soil and rocks completely enveloped the corpse of the gray-robed man. Since he was dead, then let him rest in peace. Such an expert should have a clone. But he died here and even left a message. His true body and clone should have been destroyed. Dongbo Shuang looked at the graves in front of him and thought to himself, Lake Heart Island is indeed one of the top ancient ruins in the entire deity world and abyss. The level of danger here far exceeds my imagination. I'm afraid there are techniques to kill clones and true bodies. For example, when Bloodblade killed a powerful existence, he could use karma to transmit his attack to the other body of the powerful existence, killing him directly. This meant that he could hide in the material realm. The laws of the material realm protected the native living beings. The stronger the power of the expert, the more they would be repelled. Even someone as strong as a ruler could only kill a stage 3 world deity with the help of an oath. Without the oath, he could only kill a stage 2 world deity. One must know that in the deity world and abyss, Bloodblade and the others could easily kill ordinary powerful existences. From this, one could see how powerful the laws of the material realm were. The danger of the Lake Heart Island relic is probably even greater than that of my master and the others. I must not be careless. Dongbo Shuang pondered. Be respectful. The protection of the material realm is not omnipotent. It was because when he saw Emperor Heavenly Cloud's corpse, he saw a huge array formed by hundreds of millions of meteorites. That huge array gave Dongbo Shuang a feeling that it was not inferior to the material world's law. Thus, Dongbo Shuang felt that the protection of the material world was not absolute. Fortunately, I'm a guest of Lake Heart Island. As long as they don't deliberately seek death, they won't be so unlucky. Dongbo Shuang looked at the graves. I'm not fated to meet you again. What a pity. Dongbo Shuang muttered in his heart. I wonder if these two reverends are Dao companions or relatives. The path of cultivation has never been easy. While there might be benefits to exploring the ruins, there are also dangers. Dongbo Shuang sighed. An existence that was suspected to be at the level of a real god venerable had died here. South Dongbo Shuang continued to move forward. As the distance between them and Monarch Mo Shui got closer and closer, Dongbo Shuang also began to communicate with Monarch Mo Shui through his wife Jing Qiu. Monarch Mo Shui did not always stay in the same place. He also had to avoid being killed, so he was constantly moving. However, because they were extremely deep, there were many dangers, so the distance they were moving was still very little. 30 billion li, 10 billion li, 5 billion li, 1 billion li. The distance between the two was getting closer and closer. I've gone the wrong way, this is a dead end. He clearly knew that the distance was getting closer, but there were many obstacles in the surroundings, so he had to go around for a long time. No rush, no rush. Monarch Mo Shui was currently standing on an empty plaza. The entire plaza was sealed in ice. He looked from afar and waited. At the same time, he was constantly sensing the distance between Ninyang Palace Head and the others. He was avoiding Ninyang Palace Head and the others, and at the same time he was deliberately getting closer to Dongbo Shuang. Who? Monarch Mo Shui's eyes lit up. He saw a stream of light streaking across the sky in the distance. Following that, it landed on the plaza. It was precisely the black-robed young man with some frost on his body. Monarch Mo Shui stroked his snow-white beard, and could not help but grin. Back then, he had seen Dongbo Shuang participate in the myriad flower feast. It was just that at that time Dongbo Shuang was still just a god level. But now, he already possessed the battle power of a stage 4 world deity. Good son-in-law. Monarch Mo Shui laughed and shouted. His voice was vigorous, reverberating in the surrounding plaza. He was very happy. Dongbo Shuang also saluted at once. Snow Eagle pays his respects to father-in-law. Chapter 554. The more Monarch Mo Shui looked at Dongbo Shuang, the more he liked him. He didn't have long to live. How could he not be happy to have such a son-in-law? Snow Eagle. Monarch Emo Shui chuckled. Back in the Kamsi prefecture, I already knew that you were my son-in-law. At that time, although I was happy that my daughter had successfully reincarnated, happy that there was finally someone who wanted to marry my eldest daughter who had always troubled me. But it was just a god-level kid, I was still somewhat dissatisfied. But seeing that your potential wasn't bad, it was still passable, so I didn't care. After all, my daughter's matter isn't something I can decide. Monarch Emo Shui beamed. Dongbo Shuiying helplessly said, Father-in-law, you and Jingqiu both hid it from me. I was puzzled at that time, why did Monarch Emo Shui think so highly of me? Ha ha ha. Monarch Emo Shui laughed loudly. He then said, Snow Eagle, now that we are in the depths of Lake Heart Island, there are many dangers. It will be very hard for Nanyang Palace Head and the rest to catch me. But once we return, the further we go out, the lower the danger in the outer regions to Nanyang Palace Head and the rest, it is not worth mentioning. They have joined hands to surround me, and have some cloning techniques. Wanting to escape from their encirclement, the hope is very low. Dongbo Shuiying said, Father-in-law, I and Jingqiu have thought it through. No matter how low the hope is, we have to give it a shot. If we continue to stay in the depths of Lake Heart Island, after a long time, I'm afraid we will only be waiting for death. Only by escaping, leaving the range of the rules of Lake Heart Island, can father-in-law reincarnate. Jingqiu was able to reincarnate successfully. Father-in-law, you completely have hope of reincarnating successfully too. Monarch Emo Shui nodded with a smile. I understand you don't have to say too much. There is indeed some hope of success. But my daughter succeeded, it doesn't mean I can do it too. The hope is still relatively low. Now that you and I rush out together, I'm afraid that we won't be able to escape. Your identity will also be discovered by Nanyang Palace Head and the rest, thus forming a grudge. I'm not afraid, father-in-law. Why are you afraid of this and that? Dongbo Shuiying said. Monarch Emo Shui was startled, then immediately nodded. All right, then I'll have to trouble Snow Eagle. When he thought about how Dongbo Shuiying was the lord of the material realm and also the personal disciple of God Emperor, he knew that he would be able to handle this kind of trouble. I've already ascertained the route before I came here. It's the smoothest route, Dongbo Shuiying said. All right, you point the way, we'll take a gamble. Monarch Emo Shui said. Whoosh! The two of them immediately turned into streams of light and flew away at high speed. Monarch Emo Shui released his energy, bringing along Dongbo Shuiying. The two's speed soared to 600,000 miles per second. Clearly, this old fellow who had cultivated for countless years and was comparable to powerful existences, was also extremely proficient in the aspect of speed. In the icy corridor, the cold youth stood with his hands clasped behind his back, sensing Monarch Emo Shui's position through karma. Monarch Emo Shui also used a treasure to isolate all karmic probing, causing the probing to only be able to lock onto one region. That region was hazy and indistinct, unable to probe clearly inside. I miscalculated. If I knew that Monarch Emo Shui wasn't afraid of death, I wouldn't have brought him along. The cold youth shook his head. Back then, he had brought along a few companions. He was the leader of the team. After all, his strength was the strongest. As the personal disciple of the Temporal Island Lord, he was already rather dazzling when he was a world deity. Now his strength was even more profound. Who would have thought that after Monarch Emo Shui discovered the true god weapon, he would immediately flee with it, not caring about him, the leader of the team. True god weapon. As long as I obtain the true god weapon, completely refine it, and diligently experience it day and night, I will open up my own path. The hope of stepping into the Paragon realm will greatly increase. The cold youth's eyes were filled with unwillingness. Whoever blocks my path, kill. He was truly filled with killing intent. The cold youth, Nanyang Palace Head, suddenly turned his head to look in a direction. He's moving at high speed? Even though Monarch Emo Shui intentionally controlled the isolated region, trying his best to disguise it, following his high-speed flight, the isolated region would ultimately still move along with him. What is he preparing to do? Nanyang Palace Head was not in a hurry to act, because he was not sure if Monarch Emo Shui was going to escape or go deeper. After Monarch Emo Shui flew for the time taken to brew a cup of tea, Nanyang Palace Head was completely sure. His eyes revealed a trace of coldness. This Mo Shui, he really is escaping. Does he think he can escape? So, Nanyang Palace had also moved. At another fork in the road, the old granny leaning on a wooden walking stick also contacted Nanyang Palace Head. All right, Palace Head can be at ease. Leave this matter to this old granny. I will definitely help. Her hair rapidly grew longer, transforming into grayish-brown tree roots. The grayish-brown tree roots directly broke apart, transforming into gray-robed old granny. There was a total of 9 clones. So. The 9 clones rapidly followed the fork and began to disperse, heading to block the way. This was a method possessed by Withered Tree Old Mother's innate talent. Even if she was suppressed in the Lake Heart Island, she could still create clones. Her cloning method was also what Nanyang Palace had relied on to capture Monarch Mo Shui. What's going on? He escaped so quickly. Along the way, he didn't seem to slow down at all. Could it be that he wasn't attacked? Nanyang Palace Head and the rest immediately discovered where the problem lay. Listen to my orders. Use all your strength to rush towards the periphery of the Lake Heart Island. We will block the way from the periphery. Nanyang Palace Head transmitted his orders. Emperor Prison Dragon had a life and death friendship with him, and Withered Tree Old Mother also agreed to help him. As for Red Transient Empress and Zainua Sovereign, they didn't have the guts to go against him. Not everyone was as daring as Monarch Mo Shui. All right, understood. Since each of them had chased to the depths of the Lake Heart Island, they would now follow the original path and return, avoiding some unnecessary detours. In an instant, their speed was extremely fast. Like Nanyang Palace Head and Emperor Prison Dragon, their speed was even faster than Monarch Mo Shui. The moment they no longer cared about Monarch Mo Shui and wholeheartedly rushed towards the periphery, they very quickly rushed to the front. This is troublesome. Dongbu Shuiying and Monarch Mo Shui also knew that things weren't good. No matter what, they still had to leave through the outermost exit. There are many exits and forks. Let's take a gamble. Dongbu Shuiying and Monarch Mo Shui had no other choice. Time passed. Ever since they met up with Monarch Mo Shui, a month had passed in the blink of an eye. Dongbu Shuiying and the rest were already not far from the exit, and estimated that they would be able to leave within 2 to 3 days. But at this time it was even more dangerous, because Nanyang Palace Head and the rest had already begun to frantically block the surroundings. South inside the serene and deep cave passage, Dongbu Shuiying and Monarch Mo Shui were currently transforming into flowing lights as they flew. They are closing in from all directions. Monarch Mo Shui was somewhat anxious. We must hurry and change our route. Change. Dongbu Shuiying also said. Right now he no longer pointed the way because he was forced to run randomly, and it was no longer a road he was familiar with. His only use was his identity as a guest, allowing him to bring Monarch Mo Shui along to avoid being ambushed. Change route. Change route again. Change. Chase. They can't escape. Nanyang Palace Head also went all out at this time. They could feel that Monarch Mo Shui and the rest were about to be intercepted. Monarch Mo Shui had been running with all his might, but the more he ran, the more the encirclement around him was shrinking, causing Monarch Mo Shui to feel more and more despair. We can't escape anymore. Monarch Mo Shui sighed. Actually, I also know that Nanyang Palace Head and the rest are going all out to surround me. If I want to escape, the chances are slim. Snow Eagle, you go. Don't bother about me. If you continue to follow me, you will be implicated by me. Lord Father-in-law, don't give up. I still have another way. Dongbu Shuiying said. You have a way? Monarch Mo Shui looked at Dongbu Shuiying in shock. Previously, Dongbu Shuiying had always been following him, allowing Monarch Mo Shui to change his route time and time again. Let's try. Dongbu Shuiying said. Lord Father-in-law, you better not resist. Saying that, he waved his hand, keeping Monarch Mo Shui into his own inner world. Dongbu Shuiying then quickly returned to a place not far away by himself. Very quickly he saw a dark spatial whirlpool in the distance. He walked to the side of the spatial whirlpool and sat down cross-legged. They are nearing. Monarch Mo Shui was still informing Dongbu Shuiying within his inner world. Merely a moment later. Who? A figure flew over from a distant dark cave passage, passing by this corner, and saw the Dongbua Shuiying, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground. Oh, Dongbua Shuiying? The person who came was a cold youth. Dongbua Shuiying raised his head and stood up. Greetings, Nanyang Palace head. The cold youth nodded slightly, with a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth, towards this Dongbua Shuiying. He had a very good impression. He laughed. Previously I was a little curious. Chihua Laozu had merely sent an incarnation into the world of the Xia people, so how could he have saved your wife? I asked Chihua Laozu, and he told me that it was you who offered half of your soul to your wife. Amen. Dongbua Shuiying nodded. Your war with the Xia people was so difficult. I believe that when the war ended, you should not have grasped hold of a grade 1 true meaning. The cold youth guessed. If you had a grade 1 true meaning, saving your wife would not have been so difficult. Yes. Dongbua Shuiying felt strange. This Nanyang Palace head actually understood him so well. For the sake of your wife you gave up half of your soul. At that time you were not even a grade 1 true meaning transcendent. This has the danger of severing your path of cultivation. The cold youth smiled and nodded. You really have some guts. Even though I like you more, this involves a true god weapon. Whoever obstructs me, I will kill them. Thus, I hope that you do not help Monarch Mo Shui, because you cannot help him. So from another direction, a black dragon flew over. Its speed was extremely fast, and when it landed, it turned into a tall and big man in black armor. How is it? Have you found Monarch Mo Shui in the surrounding area? The cold youth asked. No. The black-armored man, Emperor Prison Dragon, replied. The cold youth immediately looked at Dongbua Shuiying. His eyes filled with a hint of sharpness. He coldly said, the isolated area is only so big, and there are no other living beings in this area except for you. Furthermore, through karma, I can deduce that Monarch Mo Shui is also in the surrounding area. He has no other place to escape to. I'm afraid he is in your Eden treasure or your inner world. Dongbua Shuiying, for the sake of Monarch Mo Shui, going against me is not worth it. The cold youth said, we can be friends and not enemies. Dongbua Shuiying looked at him. There are some things that can't be helped. So, he directly scurried into a spatial whirlpool, disappearing within it. The cold youth's expression changed. Spatial whirlpools usually lead to more important or dangerous places. He frowned. Just a single guidance, and you are willing to risk your life to help Mo Shui? South. This was the first time Shuiying had entered a spatial maelstrom within the Lake Heart Island. This was also the only method he felt he could use. After all, he was a guest, and even if he barged into a restricted area, he would not be killed immediately. Who? He felt the surrounding space change. Suddenly, a vast land appeared in front of his eyes. Landing on this vast land, he raised his head. In the distance, there was a golden armored giant that was as huge as a mountain sitting cross-legged. This majestic golden armored giant also opened his eyes and looked over. Dongbua Shuiying felt a little awkward and hurriedly said, I accidentally trespassed. May I ask where this place is? End of this chapter. Star. Chapter 555. The golden armored giant that was like a mountain looked downwards. His face looked like it was chiseled by an axe. His eyes were calm and his lips were slightly thick. It was just that the invisible pressure he was emitting made Dongbua Shuiying feel pressured. He is much stronger than Chihua Laozu and Monarch Mo Shui. I feel that Nanyang Palace head is only close to him. Dongbua Shuiying thought. Nanyang Palace head was a powerful existence, and also the personal disciple of the Temporal Island Lord. Why was he able to make Emperor Prison Dragon and Withered Tree Old Mother listen to his orders? It was because his strength was far above ordinary powerful existences. Even though he wasn't at the Paragon realm, his battle prowess was very close. That towering golden armored giant looked over and said, this is the destruction paradise. It isn't a place you can barge into. You actually dare to barge into the destruction paradise? A black shadow suddenly appeared on the shoulder of this huge golden armored giant. The black shadow instantly streaked across the sky and pounced towards Dongbua Shuiying. Dongbua Shuiying was shocked. With a single glance, He could clearly see that the black shadow that was pouncing over was a skinny ape. He was wearing black armor and wielding a deep purple long rod. He flew over from afar and waved his long rod. The long rod rapidly expanded as though it was spanning across the heaven and earth. The deep purple long rod brought with it a might that caused Dongbu Shuiying's heart to palpitate as it smashed towards his head. I'm a guest. Even if I barge in, I should be chased away. Why are you attacking me directly? Dongbu Shuiying's heart was in a daze. However, he didn't hesitate as he hurriedly executed his scarlet cloud spear to block this rod. I don't have any ill intentions. Dongbu Shuiying transmitted his voice to explain. Peng! The deep purple long rod swept across the heaven and earth, sweeping against Dongbu Shuiying's long spear. Dongbu Shuiying could only feel a majestic force rushing towards him. He cultivated the luminous sun absolute art, which was known for its great strength. But when he faced against this deep purple long rod, he felt like an ant trying to shake a tree. He was instantly suppressed. Swoosh! Shuiying's hands had been whipped to the point where their bones were twisted. The spear had been whipped directly against his chest, causing it to cave in. Shuiying spurted out a mouthful of fresh blood, and his entire body was sent flying back at high speed. He only stopped after flying a few 100,000 kilometers away. The gap is too big. Dongbu Shuiying's expression changed. He had met many opponents, including the blood-armored warriors and black-armored monsters from the blazing Bloodgate, but none of them gave him such a feeling. The huge gap between them caused Dongbu Shuiying to be unable to retaliate at all. Because no matter how much he resisted, he would still be trampled on. Fortunately, he doesn't have the intention to kill me. Even though that club smashed down just now, it didn't destroy my body. It only sent me flying back for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Dongbu Shuiying thought to himself. If the other party had the intention to kill him, his body would most likely explode in an instant. Every single particle of his body would be annihilated, and he would be deader than dead. He would be killed in one move. This was the difference between the two sides. Elder. Dongbu Shuiying sent a telepathic message over. Ah! The ape let out a strange cry and once again swung its deep purple rod at him. Peng! Dongbu Shuiying barely managed to raise his spear, but he was slapped so hard that he spat out a mouthful of blood and turned into a streak of light. Peng! Halfway through his flight, the ape swung his rod at him again. Peng 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 peng! The ape lashed out with his rod in a frenzy, causing Dongbu Shuiying to turn into streaks of light as he spat out fresh blood. Finally, the ape flew to a high altitude and slammed his rod down. Peng! The tip of the rod directly struck Dongbu Shuiying's chest, causing Dongbu Shuiying's chest to cave in. His expression changed drastically, and he plummeted down once again, slamming heavily into the ground, creating a circular crater as shockwaves spread out in all directions. Cough 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 cough. Dongbu Shuiying was also filled with grief and indignation. His body was rapidly recovering, but he looked helplessly at the ape descending from the sky. The difference between them was so huge. He could have killed him in one move, but instead of killing him, he continued to trample on him. Snow Eagle, this ape has yet to kill you. He is probably just toying with you. Monarch Mo Shui stood in the desert of the inner world, raising his head and saying, "He is extremely strong. Even if I were to go out, I would not be his match." I know. Dongbu Shuiying's voice reverberated in the inner world, replying to his father-in-law. He naturally understood. He had already experienced the strength of his father-in-law during the attack on the Lake Heart Island. How could he be as strong as this ape? The black-armored ape carried the deep purple rod and looked at Dongbu Shuiying with a smile that was not a smile. Brat, this is the destruction paradise. You actually dared to barge into my destruction paradise. I will first hit you a few times to teach you a lesson. Why are you unhappy? Dongbu Shuiying could only maintain the smile on his face. He had no choice but to lower his head. Furthermore, he could see that the other party did not have any killing intent. The huge golden armored giant also stood up and walked over. As he walked over, his body started to shrink, eventually shrinking to a height of 100 meters. But to Dongbu Shuiying and the ape, it was still huge. It was just that it was relatively easier to communicate with each other. The golden armored giant said, "Black monkey, have you been holding it in for too long that your hands are itching? If your hands are itching, I can satisfy you." "No problem, I only need one finger to fight with you." The ape immediately laughed. Leader, how would I dare to fight with you?" "Hehe, leader, you are very smart. I have indeed been holding it in for too long. With my warlike nature, I have not been able to find an opponent." "Isn't there an opponent in the destruction paradise?" The golden armored giant looked at him disdainfully. The ape laughed and did not say anything. Opponent? Was being trampled called a battle? That was being toyed with. I, the great Lord Black Monkey, loved to trample on others. The feeling of being trampled was terrible. At this moment the ape felt refreshed. He looked at Dongbu Shuang with satisfaction. "Kid, seeing that you are a guest of my Lake Heart Island, I did not kill you. Otherwise, even if I killed you with a stick, you could only bear with it. Also, when it's about time, I will send you out of the destruction paradise." "Wait." Dongbu Shuang extended his hand to stop the ape. "You don't want to leave? Do you want to be beaten?" The ape stared. The golden armored giant said, "Kid, this is the destruction paradise. It is not a place for outsiders. You should indeed leave. If you insist on staying, I'm afraid you will not be willing to see the consequences." Dongbu Shuang said, "I want to ask if you can send me to the outermost area of the Lake Heart Island, or send me out of the Lake Heart Island." "That won't do." The ape shook his head. "Our destruction paradise is one of the paradises opened within the Lake Heart Island. The spatial passageways that are connected to the outside world are just those few. The destruction paradise is an extremely important paradise. The spatial passageways are all connected to the interior of the Lake Heart Island. It doesn't connect to the outermost area, nor does it connect to the outside of the Lake Heart Island." Dongbu Shuang was dumbfounded. Actually, he had also discovered that there were no spatial whirlpools at the outermost area. He was just holding on to a glimmer of hope. If he was only sent to a certain area within the Lake Heart Island, he would still be surrounded by Ninyang Palace Head and the rest. "Seniors," Dongbu Shuang said, "honestly speaking, I have a huge enemy outside. If I were to leave, I would most likely lose my life. I wonder if I can hide in this destruction paradise for a while? Or if you have a way for me to leave the Lake Heart Island as soon as possible and escape the pursuit of the enemy. This junior will naturally be extremely grateful." There was no other way. He could only speak honestly. The ape and the golden armored giant exchanged glances. "You have an enemy outside?" The ape mumbled, "But the rules of the destruction paradise cannot be violated. You cannot stay here unless what?" Dongbu Shuang asked. Chapter 556. The monkey chuckled, "You are an outsider. Even if you are a guest of my Lake Heart Island, the destruction paradise is not a place you can stay, unless you are no longer an outsider but one of us. So kid, as long as you join us, you can stay in the destruction paradise for as long as you want." "Join you?" Dongbu Shuang was puzzled. The golden armored giant glanced at the ape and frowned. "Joining us will be beneficial to you, but it'll also be troublesome. Furthermore, you can't join us just because you want to." Shuang felt bewildered and puzzled. Right now he was completely confused. He hurriedly asked, "May I know what identity you all represent? What are the benefits and trouble of joining you? Also, how can I join?" Oh. The monkey suddenly raised his head and screamed. His screams resounded through the sky and spread across the vast land. "There's a newcomer who wants to join us." The monkey screamed loudly and his voice resounded throughout the entire paradise. Dongbu Shuang sighed. He had just asked and hadn't decided if he wanted to join or not. This monkey was too impatient. So, in the distance, a black-armored, skinny man with a divine sword on his back flew across the sky. On the other side, another black-armored silhouette flew over. Finally, a handsome golden-armored young man also stepped on the void and came over, his aura soaring into the sky. Some were wearing black armor, some were wearing gold armor. However, Dongbu Shuang could tell with a single glance that the aura emitted by the golden-armored man was much stronger. In just a short while, 8 black armored experts and 3 golden armored experts had gathered around him. Captain Xianya. The 8 black armored experts were rather respectful, including the monkey. He smiled and bowed obediently. Clearly there was a clear hierarchy. Dongbu Shuang didn't dare to interrupt. The monkey and the other 8 black armored experts could probably kill him in a single move. As for the 3 golden armored captains, they could crush him with a flick of their fingers. The commander is here. The golden armored giant was the first to speak. The handsome golden armored youth and the ugly golden armored elder hurriedly looked over. The 8 black armored experts also held their breaths and waited. In the distance, a man wearing purple gold armor walked through the air. His eyes were faintly red, as if they contained an endless sea of blood. He also wore a black cloak that fluttered in the wind, but it had the power to freeze the space around him. The purple golden armored man walked over just like that. The surrounding world was being suppressed, and Shuang found it hard to breathe. Even his vision was turning dark and blurry, and the energy in his body was starting to go out of control. This made him come to a conclusion: too powerful. The third ancestor is absolutely not any weaker than the third ancestor. The Overlord of Destruction, Pang Yi, and Bamboo Mountain Prefecture Master. The feeling this purple golden armored man gave him wasn't as deep and boundless as his master's blood blade. However, he had already surpassed the Ninyang Palace head and the others. He was definitely not inferior to the third ancestor. Commander. The 3 golden armored captains and the 8 black armored experts all bowed respectfully. The only purple golden armored man landed on the ground. His gaze landed on Dongbu Shuang. He nodded lightly, just a stage 3 world deity. However, you are still quite young. Dongbu Shuang muttered to himself. Quite young. Looking at the aura of his soul, including the time spent in time acceleration, he had only lived for more than 1,000,000 years. In front of this commander, it wasn't even worth mentioning. Brat. The golden-armored ugly elder's eyelids drooped. He looked at Dongbu Shuang in a half-asleep manner. Don't be arrogant just because you have a bit of talent. Which of the people standing in front of you isn't talented? All of them are stage 4 world deities who can join the army. Stage 4 world deities? Dongbu Shuang was stunned. The golden-armored ugly elder swept his gaze across the surroundings. The black-armored experts all had different expressions. The golden-armored ugly elder still said, yes, stage 4 world deities. We are only stage 4 world deities. What? How is this possible? Dongbu Shuang looked at the existences in front of him. He especially looked at the purple golden-armored man. The purple golden-armored man said coldly, if we could transcend and become almighties, we wouldn't be stuck in such a limitless life and death situation. The ones who are left here are just a bunch of young fellows in our master's army of destruction. Dongbu Shuang blinked his eyes. Since you want to join, then listen carefully. The purple golden-armored commander's gaze was misty. Our master's position is unparalleled. He has an army that specializes in attacking the outside world. This army is known as the Army of Destruction. It is extremely difficult to join the Army of Destruction. The test is extremely harsh. A large number of stage 4 world deities want to join. Some even want to become ordinary soldiers. The test for soldiers is extremely difficult. In the past, there were only 8 black-armored soldiers in the Army of Destruction. The commander looked at the 8 black-armored experts in front of him. There are only 3 captains left. As for the commander, I am the only one left. The purple golden-armored man said, we are all stage 4 world deities. In the end, we either die in battle or our true deity heart collapses. Even though we die, we return to Lake Heart Island and remain like this forever. Dongbu Shuang could not help but ask, Senior Commander, you are also a stage 4 world deity. Commander is the only stage 4 world deity in our master's army of destruction to take on the position of commander. Commander has even personally killed a paragon. The ugly golden-armored old man said, it is just an avatar. The purple golden-armored man shook his head and sneered. Furthermore, what is there to talk about? I was blinded by power. Pursuing power messed up my Tao heart, and I will never be able to transcend. Dongbu Shuang was speechless. His intuition was right. This commander was not any weaker than the three ancestors. This was just a stage 4 world deity. A stage 4 world deity can kill a paragon? Dongbu Shuiying asked. Brat. The purple golden armored commander said softly, remember, the realm is the foundation. Power is just the external branches and leaves. If you chase after the luxuriance of the branches and leaves, you will forget about your foundation. In the end, you will fall and never be able to transcend. Dongbu Shuiying's heart trembled inexplicably. The realm was the foundation? Those who became true gods, I felt that they were so weak that I could kill them with a single punch. But after a long time, they all transcended and gained eternal life. As for me, I fell into oblivion. The purple golden armored commander shook his head. Laughable, lamentable, and disappointing, my master. We were able to join the army of destruction, yet we did not become powerful existences. This is a disgrace. The 12 of us are a disgrace. The 8 black armored soldiers and the 3 golden armored captains all turned silent. Disgrace. That's right, all of them were very strong. But what about now? They could not even leave Lake Heart Island. They were like puppets and could not be considered as true life. In history, those who joined the army of destruction had already become powerful existences. Or perhaps they were already powerful existences when they first joined. Brat. The purple golden armored commander looked at Dongbu Shuiying. The army of destruction is the legion under master's command to attack the outside world. It is extremely powerful. The test is extremely harsh. The absolute arts passed down are also extraordinary. But while you gain great power, there is a flaw. Once you truly die and your corpse is not destroyed, you will be controlled by Lake Heart Island. Once you return to Lake Heart Island, you will forever be controlled by Lake Heart Island. Of course, if you become a powerful existence and transcend, you will also be cut off from Lake Heart Island. This is the only flaw. It will only appear after you die. Many experts do not care about what happens after death. Furthermore, many experts are very happy to retain their consciousness after death. But if you truly experience such a life, being eternally locked in a region and living in loneliness, unable to die even if you want to, you will understand what it means to live a life worse than death. The purple golden armored commander said, of course there are many benefits to joining the army of destruction. Even the soldiers have their own unique absolute arts and true god weapons. The purple golden armored commander looked at Dongbu Shuiying. But I have to tell you this. Back then, large batches of stage 4 world deities wanted to join, but they were all eliminated. They did not even have the qualifications to become soldiers. From what I see, although your talent is not bad, you are too young and have too little experience. You cannot become a soldier of my army of destruction. Dongbu Shuiying had fought with the 8 before. He could guess that the requirements to become a soldier of the army of destruction were definitely very harsh. However, he somewhat admired this commander, even though he didn't become an almighty in the end. Although he did not become a powerful existence, a stage 4 world deity could actually become a commander. He had heard that it was the only one in the army of destruction. Of course, you are different from us. You are a true life form. After you join, you do not need to be controlled by Lake Heart Island. You can enter and leave freely. After all, Master and the rest are no longer around. No one cares about you. This is something that we are envious of. The purple golden armored commander said, if you cannot transcend, you can accompany us after death. Alright, you know what you should know. Now tell me, do you still want to join my army of destruction? The purple golden armored commander asked. Chapter 557. Dongbu Shuiying's eyes were very bright and he revealed a smile. If one is unable to transcend, it is only natural for one to sink into oblivion after death. I'm afraid most cultivators would choose to join. What about you? The purple gold armored man with a black cape looked at him calmly. I will join. Dongbu Shuiying said. Drawbacks? He didn't care about it at all. Perhaps these members of the army of destruction who were trapped here forever felt that it was a form of torture. However, Dongbu Shuiying didn't think so at all. The path of cultivation was filled with many dangers. If one wanted to obtain benefits, he would naturally have to bear the corresponding risks. The risk of joining the army of destruction was already very low. Very good. The purple gold armored man with a black cape turned his head. Follow me. He then soared into the sky and flew towards a distance. Dongwu Shuang hurriedly followed. The other 3 golden armored captains and 8 black armored soldiers flew together with him. The ape at the side said excitedly, ha ha ha. It has been a long time since a world god joined. It was only a few true gods who came to join. Humph. It's a pity that my army of destruction isn't a place that any true god can join. Almost none of them could pass the test. True god? Dongwu Shuang asked. Which true gods have Bloodblade, Monarch Green and the others? Amen? The purple gold armored man with a black cape who was flying in front turned his head and looked at Dongwu Shuang. He said softly, Bloodblade is a true god ruler. He is even at the peak of the true god rulers. He is extremely tyrannical and is the strongest existence in your universe epoch. The army of destruction doesn't have a master to lead it. The so-called benefits aren't attractive to Bloodblade. Naturally, he wouldn't join. Dongwu Shuang was startled. Huge waves rose in his heart. Your universe epoch? What cosmos era? Dongwu Shuang could not help but ask, Commander, what do you mean? The purple gold armored, black-caped man flew at the front and said calmly, in your current cosmos epoch, there is the deity world, the material world, and the dark abyss, right? Yes. Dongwu Shuang nodded. Plants grow and wither. The black-caped violet golden armored man continued. Stars are born and destroyed as well. Even the worlds of your material realm are created and destroyed. In that case, the god realm, the abyss, and the material realm. Naturally, there will be birth and destruction. The divine realm, the abyss, and the material plane can be collectively called a complete universe. The universe is the same as plants. It can be destroyed and reborn, the black-caped man said. Dongwu Shuang could feel his mind buzzing. Even though he had just heard the news, he could tell that it was highly credible. After all, he knew that one of the 3 patriarchs, Pang Yi, was one of the earliest living beings to be born in the god world. The overlord of destruction was also an extremely ancient almighty in the divine realm and the abyss. In the earliest days of the god realm, then what about before the god realm was born? What kind of world was that? And according to the legends, the Lake Heart Island ruins had existed since the earliest days of the god realm. That's all in the past. Now, only a few ruins remain. The black-caped violet golden armored man looked downwards. From afar, many ancient stone pillars could be seen. He immediately charged downwards, followed by Dongwu Shuang and the rest. Dongwu Shuang observed these stone pillars. With a single glance, he could see that there were over 100 of them. The Lord Commander stood there, his black cape fluttering in the wind. He looked at these stone pillars silently before saying, joining my army of destruction might not be very attractive to people at the Bloodblade level. However, those true gods and paragons all wanted to join, but almost all of them were eliminated. In your current cosmos epoch, there was only one person who joined my army of destruction. One person. Dongwu Shuang was shocked. Who? Pang Yi. The Lord Commander sighed. And he eventually became the captain. Truly amazing. Dongwu Shuang sighed. Pang Yi. One of the 3 ancestors, Pang Yi. He was the leader of the Fierce 5 of the deity world. However, he was currently very low profile, relying on the bloodshed god palace. He had always been pondering over his cultivation technique, not revealing any sharpness. In the deity world and abyss, he was most famous for being heavily injured by a single punch from Monarch Green. Yet he was a captain of the army of destruction. But this commander became a commander when he was only at the 4th layer of the heavens. Pang Yi was merely a captain. Yet he was praising him as amazing? Brat. The golden-armored ugly old man sneered, you don't know. Because Master and the others are no longer around, the resources of the army of destruction are limited. Naturally, they can't accept people wantonly like we did in the past. The difficulty of the trials is much higher than what we did in the past. Those who can become soldiers now would have become captains in our time. Those who can become captains now would become commanders in the future. Dongwu Shuang was enlightened. In your cosmos epoch, there have been a total of 29 true gods who have attempted it. Only Pang Yi has succeeded. The commander glanced at Dongwu Shuang. You are the first world deity of your cosmos epoch to come here. Even though I am confident, Dongbo Shuang said, but there are many dazzling world deities in the history of the deity world. Why am I the first world deity to come here? The monkey by the side said, simple. If not for the guests from Lake Heart Island barging into our territory, we would not have said anything and would have directly killed them, or even blasted them out. They would not have the chance to participate in the trials. And the world deities of your cosmos epoch do not know the method to become a guest of Lake Heart Island. Those true gods did not tell you about it. Dongbo Shuang understood. He had chosen a remote cave to enter because he wanted to save his father-in-law. That was why he had unintentionally passed by the blazing blood door. Luck had played a part in it. After which, he felt that there was something wrong with the blazing blood door. When he was being chased, he rushed back to the blazing blood door to take a gamble. Only then did he discover the secret of the blazing blood door. Furthermore, he had an absolute art on him. In addition to the spear technique destruction which he had comprehended previously, he was able to pass the selection and become a guest. The secrets of some ancient ruins in the deity world and abyss were probably secrets even amongst the powerful existences. Normally, they would exchange secrets with each other, and would not be easily revealed. Otherwise, there would not be only 29 true gods who had attempted it. One must know that there were more than 100 powerful existences in the deity world. Realms are the foundation. The commander said softly, the most important thing for world deities is to transcend. Joining the army of destruction might have been the biggest mistake of my life. However, there are many seniors in the army of destruction who have transcended. The reason is still me. The commander shook his head lightly. You can't blame others. It's just that little brat. You need to be vigilant. Take me as a warning. Remember, realms are the foundation. You must not be blinded by the increase in power. I understand. Dongbo Shuang nodded. The commander thought to himself. This logic was something his master had told him many times. However, only those who had suffered would understand it. Sometimes it was too late to understand. His master was a supreme existence back then. He was the owner of Lake Heart Island, yet he was unable to help him. Currently, our army of destruction is lacking in resources. The number of members we can accept is even fewer. If you wish to join, the difficulty will be even greater. The commander pointed to the many stone pillars at the side. There are a total of 3 trials to join. There is even a risk of death. However, I reckon that this is just an avatar. Losing an avatar shouldn't be a big deal, right? If you want to give up, you can do so anytime. There's no need. Dongbo Shuang said. If he gave up and was thrown out, he would still be surrounded by the king of Nine Yang and the others. For the first trial, you will have to choose a stone pillar. You can choose anyone. The commander said. Dongbo Shuang was bewildered as he looked at these stone pillars carefully. The stone pillars were simple and had many divine runes on them. They emitted an ancient aura, but he couldn't tell the difference. However, he still walked forward obediently and chose one. I will choose this one. All right. The commander pointed at the stone pillar. The surface of the stone pillar immediately lit up, and golden characters started to shine. This is a peak-grade world deity secret technique. It is only a sliver away from an absolute art. You need to cultivate this secret technique to the 7th level within 10,000 years. If you succeed within 10,000 years, you will pass the first trial. Otherwise, you will fail, and you will be expelled from the destruction paradise. I don't think your chances are high. The monkey by the side muttered. I guess you will be expelled. Let me remind you, more than 90% of those who join will be eliminated right from the start. Chapter 558. The chances are slim. Difficult. It's even harder than passing a stage 4 trial. The black-armored soldiers who were neither dead nor alive sighed. The Lord Commander said, Dongbo Shuang, you only need to sense this stone pillar, and you will be able to obtain the first level of the cultivation technique. Once you master the first level, you will be taught the second level. Once you master the second level, you will be taught the third level. You will only be able to sense this stone pillar. You will not be able to sense the other pillars. Understood. Dongbo Shuang replied, but he was inwardly shocked. He did not tell the commander his name, so how did he know? Oh, the other party was currently the person with the highest position in the Army of Destruction, and his position in the Lake Heart Island ruins should be quite high as well. He should have some way to obtain information. After all, the Lake Heart Island ruins was a place that even his teacher could only stop at. You only have 10,000 years. The Lord Commander turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the distance. Dongbo Shuiying immediately focused on sensing the golden runes on the stone pillar. Strands of information were transmitted into Dongbo Shuiying's sea of consciousness through the golden runes. This was the introduction of this peak world deity grade secret technique, as well as the contents of the first level. The moment he understood it, Dongbo Shuiying's eyes widened. He finally knew what a peak world deity grade secret technique was. This secret technique was called 10 Apocalyptic Fire, and it was divided into 10 levels. From the first to the third level, ordinary deities cultivated it. From the fourth to the seventh level, ordinary world deities cultivated it. From the eighth level, true gods cultivated it. From the ninth level, paragons cultivated it. From the 10th level, it was the highest level of grand perfection, and ordinary rulers cultivated it. This cultivation technique was to nurture an apocalyptic fire lotus in the inner world, within one's body. There are a total of 10 levels, and this flame is extremely powerful. However, compared to my luminous sun absolute art, it is still lacking in terms of fighting against those of a higher realm. Dongbo Shuiying thought. If he did not obtain the luminous sun, he would definitely be shocked. This 10 apocalyptic fire was much more tyrannical than all the world deity grade secret techniques he had obtained before, and he could even cultivate it at the level of blood blade. However, when he compared it to a true absolute art, he discovered its weakness. For example, the 7th level could only be trained by stage 4 world deities, and it was enough to allow one to move unhindered amongst stage 4 world deities. It could burn many stage 4 world deities to the point of howling in pain, and its power could probably be considered to be at the 4th boundary of the 3rd volume of the luminous sun. Reaching the 7th level is probably even harder than reaching the 4th rank of luminous Sunday. After all, this is something only ordinary stage 4 world deities can train in. Dongbo Shuiying thought to himself, forget it, I'll give it a try first. Dongbo Shuiying sat cross-legged in front of the stone pillar and began to cultivate. The other 8 soldiers of the Army of Destruction and the 3 gold-armored captains were chatting with each other. I bet he will definitely fail. How can such a tender little guy succeed in 10,000 years? He has his main body outside, so he can probably accelerate time. Even if time is accelerated 100 times, it would only be 1,000,000 years. It's still impossible. It would be easier for a stage 4 world deity to cultivate a real god's secret technique, but for a stage 3 world deity to cultivate a stage 4 world deity's secret technique? This is much more difficult. I also feel that his chances are slim. They were all discussing and their opinions were unanimous. They all felt that it was impossible for Dongbo Shuiying to reach the 7th level within 10,000 years. Dongbo Shuiying's inner world was a vast world of 5 billion kilometers. Deep underground in this vast land, there was a huge lotus flower that could be roughly seen. Countless flames were swimming within the lotus flower, and the outer layer of the lotus flower was filled with endless cold air, causing the surrounding soil and rocks to completely freeze. At the center of the lotus flower, there was a tiny flame being nurtured. This flame was green in color. It was like a small flame, green in color, yet its power was not small. 4th level. 5th level. Dongbo Shuiying's realm was high, so he could cultivate at an extremely fast pace. The original green flame had gradually turned into a blue flame, and the blue color was becoming deeper and deeper. Deity World, Bloodshed God Palace territory. Within a piece of void, there was a huge floating land. On this land there was a chain of palaces. There were also many scattered cavern dwellings. This place was slightly unique, as there were countless mortals living here. Teacher, this disciple will take his leave. A white-robed teenager respectfully bowed. This white-robed teenager was the powerful existence, Palace Head Zi Hao. He was the disciple of Pang Yi, though he was not a member of the Bloodshed God Palace. He only came here frequently to pay a visit to his teacher. Pang Yi had once imparted to many disciples, and he was very serious in teaching them. He had taught many good disciples, but now Peng Yi did not teach many disciples anymore. He was wholeheartedly researching the cultivation technique he created. Zihao, you still have to calm down. You're still too arrogant. It's difficult for you to open up your own path and step into the honorable realm. Peng Yi sat there with a calm and gentle look on his face. One had to know. Peng Yi was the head of the fierce five of the deity world, and could be said to be the most tyrannical existence in the deity world. But now he was so gentle. It was truly inconceivable. This disciple understands. It's just that understanding is easy, but doing it is hard. The white-robed teenager chuckled. He greatly admired his teacher. The more he interacted with him, the more he admired and respected him from the bottom of his heart. Even that high and mighty Bloodshed God Palace, the Bloodshed God Palace, valued Peng Yi the most. Peng Yi softly nodded. The white-robed teenager immediately retreated, disappearing from sight. Peng Yi sat beneath a withered tree. His robes were already covered in dust. His heart was still as calm as water as he watched his disciple leave. Even when his disciple left through the time-space tunnel, he would still be able to observe him. His current combat power had long become unfathomable. He could sense the countless mortals, cultivators, and even powerful existences within this land spanning 1 trillion kilometers. They were all under his control. They were as weak as ants. If he wanted to, with just a single thought, a terrifying power would descend, and he would be able to easily kill a powerful existence. Even if he sat on this seemingly ordinary body, with a slight burst of power, the surroundings would be completely annihilated. This was the power that Peng Yi possessed. It was also the power that made even God Emperor look at him. Just that. Power is ultimately a side branch. Peng Yi no longer cared about power. His face was filled with joy as he looked at the myriad existences, appreciating their beauty. My cultivation technique is finally about to be completed. He was very happy. His Tao was about to be completed. Brother Peng Yi. A message was transmitted over. Commander. Peng Yi chuckled as he turned his head. His gaze pierced through the time-space barrier, traversing through the endless distance before landing on the distant Lake Heart Island. That commander had a higher status than him in name, but he was usually more respectful towards him. After all, the trials were much more difficult. That time, Peng Yi could become a captain. During the era of the Lake Heart Island Master, Peng Yi would most likely have become a commander. Furthermore, the commander felt that Peng Yi was becoming more and more unfathomable. He could even sense a trace of his teacher's aura from Peng Yi. I have a little fellow here called Dongbu Shueying. He is also preparing to join the army of destruction. The commander transmitted. Dongbu Shueying? I know him. Peng Yi smiled. It's a good thing for him to join. First he pursues power, indulges in it, and then transcends it. That's a good thing. But if he can't transcend, he will sink into oblivion. A mediocre true god's existence is meaningless. Peng Yi said. The commander felt that he couldn't see through Peng Yi anymore. When he first met Peng Yi, he felt that Peng Yi was extremely violent. Later on, he realized that Peng Yi was extremely gentle and calm. However, when he occasionally interacted with Peng Yi, he realized that Peng Yi's coldness was much stronger than before. This was an existence that surpassed him in terms of power, state of mind, and realm. In the Destruction Grotto Heaven within the Lake Heart Island historical remains, in front of a stone pillar, a black-robed Dongbu Shueying was still sitting cross-legged. It had been 1,000 years, but he still hadn't mastered it. Chapter 559. The moment he received the information about the 10 apocalyptic fire, Dongbu Shueying understood that this test was extremely difficult. Because he had only grasped hold of 3 Grade 1 deity hearts, his comprehension of the laws of the world was far from a Stage 4 world deity. But since there was such a test, there was definitely hope. One of the 3 ancestors, Peng Yi, was able to become a captain. At the very least, I should be able to become a soldier. Dongbu Shueying encouraged himself inwardly. But he also knew that there were many powerful existences who had yet to pass the test. The first 6 levels of the 10 apocalyptic fire were completed by Dongbua Shuiying in a single breath. His realm was relatively high, and even his absolute art had reached the third transformation. Furthermore, he had comprehended the huge array formed by billions of meteorites on the Lake Heart Island, allowing him to perfect his spear technique, destruction. His foundation was extremely sturdy, and the first 6 levels were not difficult at all. But the 7th level was like a heavenly moat in front of Dongbua Shuiying. I'm confused. How should I comprehend it? Dongbua Shuiying buried his head in contemplation. Back in his hometown, the Xia people's world, Crimson Rock Mountain, Dongbua Shuiying was also pondering and comprehending under 100-fold time acceleration. At times, he would ponder to the point of becoming a little irritable. After all, the feeling of not having a single clue was too terrible. When cultivating, one would only feel more motivated when one saw the slightest improvement. Such a situation where one could not find a clue would indeed affect one's mental state. To change his mindset, Dongbua Shuiying even went to study the 4th transformation of the 3rd volume of the Luminous Sun. He also studied the many array diagrams in the book left behind by the frozen senior, Paragon Dust Cloud. At times, he would also recall the various profound mysteries of the array formed by billions of meteorites on the Lake Heart Island. He could use the stones of other mountains to study jade. Since he could not find a way to comprehend it himself, he would look for a breakthrough from these more profound absolute arts and array diagrams. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years passed. Within Dongbua Shuiying's inner world. Rumble, high up in the sky of this vast world, the winds howled and countless white clouds surged. These white clouds were constantly changing as the luminous sun force that formed these white clouds was undergoing a transformation, transforming into an even more tenacious, powerful, and tyrannical force. Every strand of luminous sun force contained a sharpness that could cause the expressions of stage for heavens to change. Sigh. A huge illusory head appeared in midair. It was Dongbua Shuiying's face. He looked at the countless white clouds. I'm still at my wit's end with my secret technique, and I've even managed to push Luminous Sun to the 4th transformation realm. Yes, his Luminous Sun force had already reached rank 4. My good son-in-law, is this the power of the absolute art? A figure flew up from below, flying into mid-air, nearing the huge skull illusion at the side. It was precisely the white-haired and white-bearded monarch Mo Shui. It's the absolute art that Master bestowed upon me. Dongbua Shuiying looked towards Monarch Mo Shui and said, "Powerful, truly powerful. Even though I'm sensing it from afar, I can still feel the tyrannical and unstoppable power of this power." Monarch Mo Shui praised, "Just based on the power within your body, you're already far above me. Father-in-law, this luminous sun force is the only thing that I can rely on. But in terms of realm, I'm still far from father-in-law's." Dongbua Shuiying shook his head. 4th transformation success. His own strength should be comparable to Monarch Armadillo Jade, and could be considered close to the standard of a powerful existence. Compared to his father-in-law who could truly fight against powerful existences, he was still lacking quite a bit. The difference between a stage 3 and a stage 4 was simply too great. A stage 4 at least grasped hold of 4 grade 1 deity hearts, maybe even 5, 6, or even close to grasping the complete law of heaven and earth. Monarch Mo Shui's inner strength was ordinary, but his realm was too high. He was still a level stronger than Dongbua Shuiying. Your strength has greatly increased, yet you're not the slightest bit excited. Is it because of the test of joining the army of destruction? Monarch Mo Shui asked. Dongbua Shuiying nodded. Even though attaining the 4th transformation realm is a good thing, I was originally going to reach it soon anyway. It's just a matter of time. But if I'm unable to pass the test, then I'll be forcefully expelled. At that time, I'll land in the hands of Ninyang Palace Head and the rest. Sigh, if Ninyang Palace Head and the rest can't obtain the true God weapon, they definitely won't let father-in-law off. If father-in-law died, then this time would be a complete failure. No matter what, the true God weapon definitely can't be given to them. Monarch Mo Shui solemnly said, "The number of true God weapons is extremely rare. For me to be able to coincidentally discover it, it's already a great fortune. I'm a person that's about to die. Even if I'm lucky enough to successfully escape and reincarnate, I'll only be able to drag out my life for a few more years. I don't have the slightest bit of confidence that I'll be able to transcend and become a powerful existence. This old man, have lived for so many years that I no longer care about death. The true God weapon must be left behind, so that my daughter can comprehend it from time to time. Even Snow Eagle can comprehend it. It'll be of great help to your cultivation. Amendombo Shuang nodded. He also understood that it was impossible for father-in-law to hand over the true God weapon to Ninyang Palace head. Moreover, the true God weapon was currently in Jingqiu's hands. But to pass the test, it's difficult. This is only the first test. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. What's the first test? Tell me. Monarch Imo Shui asked. Maybe I can give you some suggestions. Previously, he knew that Dongbo Shuang was undergoing a test, so he didn't dare to disturb him. Dongbo Shuang's eyes lit up. That's right, even if he couldn't find a clue, he could still consult father-in-law. Father-in-law's realm was much higher than his. His own realm wasn't any weaker than a powerful existence. Moreover, after living for a long time, his vision and knowledge would be different. Maybe he could give him some pointers on the way. It's like this. Dongbo Shuang said, the army of destruction gave me a world deity grade secret technique called 10 World Extinguishing Fire. It's a top-notch world deity grade secret technique. The difficulty of cultivating it is extremely high, and it's divided into a total of 10 levels. Dongbo Shuang gave a simple description, as well as where the problem he encountered was. Monarch Imo Shui nodded lightly after hearing it. The test is really difficult. To actually let you, a stage 3 world deity, cultivate it to a level that only a normal stage 4 world deity can achieve. I'm at my wit's end now. Dongbo Shuang said helplessly. Your realm isn't enough. There's nothing you can do about it. Unless you become a stage 4 world deity. However, if you become a stage 4 world deity, I'm afraid the difficulty of the test will increase. Monarch Imo Shui said. And Dongbo Shuang nodded. He also understood this point. If you want to forcefully comprehend it, then according to what I know, there's only one way, and it's still very difficult. Monarch Imo Shui said while stroking his beard. Dongbo Shuiying's huge illusory head was filled with joy. Father-in-law, please explain in detail. This father-in-law of his was really experienced and knowledgeable. He had foolishly comprehended it for 1,000 years, yet he never came to ask his father-in-law. Your problem is that your realm isn't enough. Clearly, this 10 World Extinguishing Fire has extremely high requirements for many aspects of the realm. Monarch Imo Shui said. Since that's the case, then we can only break through the surface with a single point. Break through the surface with a single point? Dongbo Shuang listened carefully in doubt. All laws and profound mysteries have a core essence. This is the laws of the world. Its essence is also just grade 1 deity heart. Monarch Imo Shui said, first, comprehend the different essences of this secret technique. From the different angles of the world deity heart, extremity deity heart, and chaotic deity heart, go and take a look. For example, see how the world deity heart of this secret technique is used. See how the extremity deity heart of this secret technique is used. Analyzing it from 3 angles, the difficulty of cultivating this secret technique should be reduced. You will have hope in cultivating it. Break through the surface with a single point? Separate and analyze it? Dongbo Shuiying's eyes brightened. Seemed like it was possible. I will try. Dongbo Shuiying's huge illusory head smiled. Thank you, Lord Father-in-law. Ha ha ha, I am only pointing a direction. Everything still depends on you. Monarch Imo Shui said. Dongbo Shuiying was very excited. Although his master Bloodblade had also guided him in his cultivation, God Emperor had guided him in comprehending the laws of the world, and how to transcend and become a powerful existence. As for the aspect of cultivating the secret technique to increase one's strength, he had not guided him at all. From Lord Commander's fate, it seemed that pursuing power too much was not good. Lord Commander and Bamboo Mountain Prefecture Master were both stage 4 world deities who possessed tyrannical strength, but they were both stuck at stage 4 world deities. However, there were many who cultivated absolute arts. For example, Bloodblade's 2 personal disciples, Monarch Green and Monarch Guzong, had both cultivated absolute arts, but they were similarly powerful existences. This proved one point. Cultivating absolute arts did not affect one's cultivation. It was just that pursuing power too stubbornly would bring about trouble. My current strength is still very weak, so I do not have this problem. Donghua Shuiying did not care. He was not even a stage 4 world deity and was still far from it. Chapter 560. In his Sea of Consciousness, there was a diagram of a flaming lotus which contained the cultivation method of the 7th level of 10 world extinguishing fire. He could only receive the information of the next level with every level that he mastered. Let's analyze it first. A small person was beside the flaming lotus and he was looking at it carefully. Many parts of the originally complicated flame lotus that he could not understand were discarded to the side, and he focused his attention on the profound mysteries of the world deity heart. Soon, under his observation, the flame lotus was greatly simplified, and only a few very simple parts were left, all of which contained the profound mysteries of the world deity heart. So, in this secret skill, world god heart is mainly used to nurture a lair? The small person's eyes beamed with joy. Sometimes it was better to look at it from another angle. It looked like a mess, but one could immediately find the pattern. In the destruction grotto, although the 8 black-armored soldiers and the 3 gold-armored captains were powerful, they could only live in loneliness. Such days would never end, unless someone destroyed their bodies one day. But their strongest point was their body. Their defense was almost invincible. Hence they had lived for too long. They looked at Donghua Shuiying and they were looking forward to it. It was one of the few pleasures in their lonely days. Kid, it's been 2,000 years. Do you have no clue? It's hard on you. Your realm is too low. Come back after you become a universe god in the 4th heaven. By then you might have a higher chance. The black-armored soldiers at the side teased him. Donghua Shuiying, who was dressed in black, sat there cross-legged, immersed in his cultivation and wasn't affected at all. If you think there's no hope, just give up. Why do you have to force yourself? The monkey muttered. This kid Donghua, I heard that he was being chased outside. That's why he ran to us. A black-armored stone giant said. If he were to be chased out, he would still die. So he won't give up easily. Not giving up is also a loss. A universe god in the 3rd heaven needs to master the 7th level. If he succeeds, I will eat my axe into my stomach. A short old man said. While they were talking, time flew. In the blink of an eye, Donghua Shuiying had been in the destruction grotto for 3,000 years. At the outermost perimeter of the island, Ying, who was cultivating in seclusion, was also waiting. She had waited for so many years, but her husband and father had yet to come out. However, after communicating with Donghua Shuiying, she knew that everything was still safe. Thus, she could only endure and lower her head to comprehend the true god weapon to distract herself. Ying, who was dressed in white, was sitting cross-legged. A dark green longsword was placed on her knees, sheathed in its sheath. Ying was currently using her mind to sense the true god weapon. She was also slowly refining it. The difficulty of refining a true god weapon was too high. Boom! Within the true god weapon. In the void, it was like the world core of the mortal world. Within this void, there were countless laws of profound mysteries surging. These countless laws of profound mysteries ultimately formed a vast dark green sword shape. It carried a terrifying sharpness and killing intent. Amazing! Ying consciousness wandered about, as though she was in a vast ocean, and the dark green sword-shaped rule was the ocean. The complete laws of the heaven and earth by right should be absolutely balanced and should not have any offensive power. However, the complete laws within this true god weapon were filled with killing intent and offensive power. Moreover, it seemed to be more complicated than the ordinary laws of the heaven and earth. This was also why ordinary grotto heaven treasures were considered common. At least stage 4 world deities had hopes of obtaining them. Powerful existences could usually refine them. And this was also the reason why true god weapons were so hard to obtain. Grotto heaven treasures could only open up a world within them. As for offensive true god weapons, firstly, the laws of the heaven and earth would change. Secondly, the material requirements were extremely high, making it even harder to refine. Wung, the divine sword within the sheath was trembling faintly, and terrifying killing intent was brewing. This was the killing intent of a world. The moment it was unsheathed, it was as though the power of a vast world was gathered within the sword edge. It was indestructible. My realm isn't enough. Until now, I have yet to completely refine it. I still have to continue improving. Jingqiu thought. She was very clear that her fate was extremely good. Firstly, she had the heart sword diagram, and a true god weapon for her to refine and control. Now that she had just become a stage 4 world deity not too long ago, even though she could comprehend other things, the deity heart she comprehended was not much. Compared to Monarch Mo Shui and the other old fellows, her foundation was still lacking. Lake Heart Island inside the ruins. The cold youth, Nanyang Palace head, was sitting cross-legged on a large ice block. He frowned and flipped his hand to take out a black jade sculpture. It was a sculpture of a woman being chained up. He gently caressed it. I am already close to despair. Until now, I have yet to find my path. Such days are so tiring. Nanyang Palace head muttered. I really want to give up and be truly free. However, this true god weapon is my hope to open up my path. I must obtain it. Nanyang Palace head's eyes were filled with madness. Dongbu Shuang slowly opened his eyes and looked at the stone pillar in front of him. Sensing the stone pillar transmitted another message. It was the cultivation method of the 8th level of the secret skill. Dongbu Shuang stood up. Dongbu brat, are you prepared to give up? The monkey made a ruckus. Giving up so quickly? I thought you would have to hold on for 10,000 years. Another short old man chuckled. I have already mastered it. Dongbu Shuang spoke. He looked at the 8 black armored soldiers and 3 golden armored captains who were stunned. Please inform the commander to prepare for the second test. Mastered it? Everyone was stunned. How was this possible? Ever since the master left, the resources of the army of destruction no longer increased and would forever decrease. Hence, the requirements to join were much harsher. Moreover, in this long period of time, there had never been a stage 3 world deity who came to participate. Dongbu Shuang was the first stage 3 world deity who came to take the test after the master of Lake Heart Island left. The difficulty level was already extremely high. From what they saw, the possibility of success was almost negligible. The 7th level 10 world extinguishing fire. Dongbu Shuang spat out from his mouth. Instantly, faint purple flames rushed out and caused the surrounding space to sizzle. Looking at the faint purple flames, it seemed very beautiful. However, the soldiers and captains of the army of destruction knew the power of the flames. It didn't pose a threat to them, but an ordinary stage 4 world deity would be severely injured. Those who were weaker might even be burned into nothingness. He actually succeeded. All of them looked at the flames that Dongbu Shuang spat out. Short old man, didn't you say that if he mastered it, you would eat the axe into your stomach? The monkey turned his head and shouted. The short old man blinked and opened his mouth wide. Then he stuffed the axe that he was carrying on his back into his mouth and swallowed. Go. He swallowed the axe into his stomach. I'll do as I said. The short old man replied straightforwardly. Amidst their exclamations, quarrels, and discussions, a ray of light finally flew over from afar. It was the purple gold armored commander with a black cape. The commander descended and looked at Dongbu Shuang. You've mastered it? Yes. Dongbu Shuang smiled. He pointed out with his finger and a strand of faint purple flames appeared on his fingertip. Do you think that mastering it is worth being happy about? You're still far from it. The commander sneered. He extended his hand. Hong long long. The entire destruction paradise was filled with a surging power. The boundless power enveloped Dongbu Shuang. Dongbu Shuang felt his vision turning black as his consciousness became blurry. The terrifying power had completely enveloped him and seeped into his body, forcefully sealing his true deity heart. Following which, the power retreated rapidly. Dongbu Shuang was puzzled. If the other party wanted to kill him, it would be extremely easy. Why did he seal his true deity heart? But this feeling, Dongbu Shuang sensed that he could no longer activate the luminous sun force within his body. Of course, because the inner world was a part of his body, he could still control it. However, The consciousness of his true deity heart was no longer able to penetrate the outside world. His senses towards the outside world had become blurry, and he felt like a mortal. His consciousness could no longer sense the heavens and earth. However, there was still a difference between him and a mortal. His vision and hearing were much better. His eyes could see countless different types of light, and his hearing could hear countless vibrations. However, this was already extremely weak. After all, he couldn't even activate the luminous sun force. Prepare to begin the second trial, the commander said indifferently. Chapter 561. Follow me. The commander instantly soared into the sky. The other 8 black-armored soldiers and 3 golden-armored captains followed suit. Dongbo Shuang suddenly stomped on the ground, causing the ground to tremble. South exerting strength from both his legs, he leaped into the sky and transformed into a stream of light. However, Dongbo Shuang felt slightly awkward in midair. In the past, he had always relied on his world deity energy or luminous sun force to envelop his entire body, allowing his flying speed to be extremely fast. He had even relied on his consciousness to control the laws of profound mysteries. But what about now? Right now, he was unable to use his world deity energy or luminous sun force. Even his consciousness could not be released. He could only rely on his physical strength. Haha, your flying speed must be very slow, right? The black-armored ape who was originally flying slowed down and laughed weirdly. You can only rely on your physical strength. Have a good feel of it. The soldiers of the army of destruction are most proficient in their bodies. Our absolute arts are also meant to cultivate our bodies. Hence, all of our defenses are extremely strong. If you can't even control your body well, then you should not join the army of destruction. Dongbo Shuang was enlightened. Body. Sealing his true deity heart was to allow him to only use his physical strength to test himself. South, when Dongbo Shuang was flying, the slightest tremble of his muscles and bones would cause the laws of heaven and earth to change. The profound mysteries of the world deity heart allowed Dongbo Shuang to move without any obstructions. Instead, the laws of heaven and earth would assist him. Furthermore, the extreme deity heart allowed Dongbo Shuang to move at an extremely high speed. Wang wang wang, everywhere Dongbo Shuang flew past, spatial ripples would form around him. It was just that his flying speed was greatly reduced. He could only move at a speed of 200,000 li per second. Your body is too weak, too weak. The ape by the side followed suit. At the same time, it shook its head and commented, your flying speed can't even reach the limit of the laws of heaven and earth of 600,000 li per second. What a joke. Even the weakest soldier of our army of destruction can casually flick his finger and destroy your body. My secret technique is not good at cultivating the body, Dongbo Shuang said. Among his secret techniques, only the time immemorial body was used to train his body. However, it was used to protect his life. It was not good in terms of strength or speed. Moreover, it was only a world deity level secret technique. Dongbo Shuang was only a stage 3 world deity, so his secret technique realm was not high. Naturally, he could not be compared to the soldiers of the army of destruction. Cultivate your body properly. The body is the easiest to improve. The monkey said, world deity energy and some other powers are classified as energy. The body, on the other hand, belonged to the material. In terms of explosive power, sturdy defense, and so on, matter has an advantage. Dongbo Shuang nodded in agreement. The grade 1 deity heart. That substance deity heart. Once grasped, one would possess boundless strength and extremely high defense. However, the difficulty of cultivating it was extremely high. Ordinary stage 4 world deities would only be able to grasp the substance deity heart by analogy. Among the weaker world deities, it was rare to see the substance deity heart. Both the substance deity heart and the boundless deity heart were rather rare. Dongbo Shuang had only seen Joshi display the boundless deity heart during the myriad flower feast. The commander flying in front did not fly very fast. It seemed to be intentionally bringing Dongbo Shuang along. After which, he descended as well. The subordinates behind him, including Dongbo Shuang, also descended one after another. Dongbo Shuang looked down. Below them was a chain of mountains. They were verdant and lush, and the canyon was dark and gloomy. Within the mountains there were many caves and buildings. They were currently diving down from a mountain peak. The peak of the mountain had been completely leveled, and there was a complete battle platform on it. So. The commander and the others landed beside the battle platform. Dongbu Shuiying descended as well. You go up, the commander said. Dongbu Shuiying did not ask any questions. He directly took a step forward. In a while there will be many enemies surrounding and attacking you. The number of enemies will be endless, and the duration of the battle is unknown. You have to keep fighting until the enemies take the initiative to retreat. At that time you will be victorious and you will pass the second trial. If you are defeated or killed before the enemies retreat, you will naturally fail. Remember, the moment you are blasted out of the battle platform you will fail as well. The commander said. The duration of the battle is unknown? Dongbu Shuiying asked. Then what about the number of enemies? They will appear unceasingly. The total number is unknown as well. The commander chuckled. What you have to do is to hold on. Dongbu Shuiying was speechless. If there was a clear boundary, there would be something to look forward to. But right now, he did not even know how long the battle would last. This would definitely affect his mental state. However, Dongbu Shuiying was not an ordinary person. In an instant, he regained his composure. Seems like the second trial is indeed a test of my physical strength. With a flip of his hand, Dongbu Shuiying retrieved a scarlet-red spear, the Scarlet Cloud Spear. With a single step, he arrived at the center of the dueling platform as he cautiously observed his surroundings. As long as he was blasted out of the dueling platform, he would still lose. Naturally, it would be safer for him to stand at the center of the dueling platform. Let's begin, the commander said. Wang immediately. Black deity imprints appeared on the surface of the dueling platform. Countless deity imprints appeared, and a blurry barrier of light appeared around the dueling platform. The countless deity imprints on the barrier of light began to emit energy, directly condensing into a humanoid figure formed from black light. This black figure was wearing a mask, and he was bare-handed. With a boom he charged over with incredible speed. Boo! Dongbu Shuiying struck out with his spear. Without any hesitation, his spear directly pierced through the throat of the black figure. The black figure's body immediately collapsed, and the energy returned to the countless deity imprints on the ground. This caused Dongbu Shuiying to be slightly surprised. It was settled just like that? Wasn't it too easy? Following which, another black figure condensed from the deity imprints on the barrier of light. This time it was wielding a long saber, and it pounced over with a speed that far surpassed the previous one. Dang! Dongbu Shuiying's expression changed. He hurriedly used his spear to parry the incoming attack, following which, he retaliated with a spear strike. It seemed like a casual spear art, but it was actually one of the 3 secret arts, the life. Everything was based on the profound mysteries of the world, and everything came from his heart. His moves were bold and unconstrained, and he could adapt according to the situation. However, this black figure managed to block 3 consecutive spear strikes from Dongbu Shuiying. The last spear strike pierced through his chest, and he was nailed to the ground. Only then did his body start to collapse. So, Dongbu Shuiying's expression changed slightly. In front of him, the deity imprints on the barrier of light condensed into a black figure. There were a total of 2 black figures, one wielding a long pole, and the other wielding a shield and a curved saber. Both of them attacked Dongbu Shuiying at the same time. Boom! The black figure wielding the shield and curved saber was the most ferocious. When he attacked, his shield suddenly expanded, and in an instant it covered half of the platform. In addition, Dongbu Shuiying's current speed wasn't considered fast. There was no way for him to dodge, and he could only face the black figure head-on. Dongbu Shuiying spun his spear, and the shaft of the spear was bent. Everywhere it passed by, layers of world fissures would appear, and he directly lashed out. Pong! Even though Shuiying had carefully borrowed a large number of world gaps to dissipate the force, when that shield clashed with the spear, Shuiying could not help but take 3 heavy steps back. Such a powerful force. If I were to clash head-on, I'm afraid I would have been forced out of the battle platform. The strength of the enemies on the platform was growing too quickly. Each of them was stronger than the last, and their numbers were still increasing. Dongbua brat, you must know how to utilize your body strength, the monkey shouted loudly from afar. The other black-armored soldiers, the golden-armored captain, and the commander were all watching leisurely. From their point of view, Dongbua Shuiying's utilization of his body strength was indeed very clumsy. Dongbua Shuiying couldn't be blamed. When he was a mortal, he mainly used his body's strength. After he became a transcendent or even a deity or a world deity, he would either rely on the laws of profound mysteries of the heavens and earth, or some special secret arts, such as the luminous sun force. Even if he occasionally used brute force to fight, he would only rely on it to bully others. After becoming a world deity, it had been a long time since he had truly studied the potential of his body. After all, the luminous sun force was much stronger than his physical body, and the army of destruction specialized in physical aspects. These old fellows who had existed for an unknown period of time naturally felt that Dongbua Shuiying's utilization of his body strength was too clumsy. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.